Welcome, connoisseurs of fine common cardboard, to today's live stream and to this episode of Let's Build. Today, we are building Narfi Betrayer King with the Dimir Midrange approach. Let me know how you all are doing in the chat. It's great to have you all here today, and I'm excited to finally tackle this commander, which has kind of been on the edge of my brain for a long time. There's a lot to like about the commander. The colors are phenomenal, especially for the typal strategy that we intend to pursue today. Additionally, it has the ability to dodge the commander attacks by returning itself from the graveyard over and over again. It's going to amplify the power and toughness of the zombies that we have in play, and it's going to give us some unique lines of attack that are available to us at common because of the certain typal rewards that we have at common rarity. So, without further ado, we are going to go straight into the build. Once again, super happy to have you all here and excited to get your hand building this deck, because while there's a certain core of things that I want to build around with this commander, it's yet unclear to me exactly how this deck is going to look. So let's take a look at what we've got here. There's a couple of core cards that I intend to be building around with Narfi Betrayer King. By the way, I really like the names that I've got here, the Night King and the Walking Dead, both excellent monikers for Narfi the Betrayer King. So let's take a look at the commander first. We have a 5-mana Dimir commander. It's a 4/3 zombie wizard. It is a legendary snow creature. It's going to buff the power and toughness of all snow and zombie creatures you control by +1/+1. Then we have the ability to pay 3 snow mana off of snow lands to return it from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. As a lord, it may be targeted by some amount of removal. It is small enough that occasionally, on its toughness, that occasionally it will die to sweepers, such as suffocating, not suffocating fumes, but sulfurous blast, crypt rats, pestilence. The ability to return it to the battlefield is really powerful for our own use of pestilence. Because it is a lord, it may be targeted for that reason, and the ability to skip the command tax is going to be very powerful. I'm going to adjust my chat function here a little bit, bring this in so that it's properly sized. There we go. We've got Matt in the chat. Hello, friend. Good to see you, buddy. Good evening. Vibe Proxies, thanks for the deck tech, of course. Well, it's going to be a bit of a deck tech, but it's mostly going to be a bit of a let's build in this case, because I am going to need your guys' help in constructing this. So glad to have you here, Matt. Thank you. And let me know that the audio is coming through clear with a little thumbs up, smiley face, whatever you'd like to do. But pretty straightforward. We have a lord in the command zone. It tells us exactly what we want to play: snow and zombie creatures. In my exploration, the snow creatures available to us are not phenomenal. There are some of them that are good, but it's mostly zombies, and that's really what we're going to be working towards here. But basically, the attractive thing are the colors, the ability to get the commander back over and over for very cheap, skipping the command tax, and then the Lord ability there, incentivizing a particular core set of cards. This is what we're looking at here. These core cards are Ghoul Caller's Chant, which is a 1-mana return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, or return 2 target zombie cards from your graveyard to your hand. The reason this is a powerful effect is that zombie cards does not specify creature cards, which means that any card with changeling shapeshifter characteristics counts. That means nameless inversion. It could mean a whole host of other things, but changeling outcast will be included in that. And this is a powerful effect. 1 mana to return 2 creatures is very efficient, and it's going to help us reuse and recur the creatures that we have in our deck. The next one is Tortured Existence. This is a 1-mana enchantment, pretty iconic black card that allows us to return creatures from our graveyard to our hand by discarding creature cards. So we're essentially able to take a creature in our hand that we don't need, and we can swap it for a creature in our graveyard that we do want. This works particularly well in decks where there is a spread of creature quality and creature cost. If you play a deck that has a lot of expensive creatures in it, or only a lot of cheap creatures, then essentially we're only ever swapping a cheap creature for a cheap creature or an expensive creature for an expensive. And when they're expensive, that tends to mean that they're pretty good. Like there's a reason that they're there. So this card functions best when we have a spread of cheap creatures that we play early on and high value expensive creatures that we want to get back and reuse later on in the game. So that's what we're going to try and do today. Lucifer, welcome to the chat. Glad to have you here. Woohoo! Tortex, best popper card. And NF says, hi all, hyped for this one. Hey, NF, glad to have you here. I don't think I've seen you in chat before, so welcome to the stream, and I'm glad to have you. Tortex is a really, really interesting card. Not the kind of card that we're likely to ever see get printed again with any sort of analog printing. We may get access to a reprint of it someday, but this is a very unusual and inexpensive effect. It's cheap to deploy. It provides repeat value. It's engine for dredge and other effects like that. 60 card popper has actually had a resurgence lately with cards like Mire Triton of the dredge archetype and Basilisk Gate, using cards like Ichor Drinker that can gain lifelink to get the bonus off of Basilisk Gate and hit people to gain life while you're just recurring value and grinding down. Basilisk Gate gave that 60 card popper deck a really powerful way to close the game. If you'd like to see what that looks like, you can actually go and check out David Royale. Saitama is his Discord name. David Royale has a video on this deck, and I was really impressed by it. So it's cool to see this coming back to 60 card popper, but here in Popper Commander, we're going to be using this just for reusing our powerful creatures. The next one is Shepherd of Rot, and I have to admit, Shepherd of Rot is like one of my favorite commons of all time. I have spent a lot of time exploring zombies in common. And in fact, in my battle box of popper decks, I had a black zombies deck that I used to play a lot that I was working on trying to make very competitive. And Shepherd of Rot was one of the core engines of the deck. It never really reached a point where it felt super, super powerful, because there's a certain point where the efficient zombies are no longer, they're not good enough, right? We need something with shadow, we need something with lifelink, something that could gain us more life back. But Shepherd of Rot is incredibly powerful. If we activate Shepherd of Rot for, say, 5, we're taking 5 damage, but we're dealing 15 to the table. And in Popper Commander, this is even more powerful than it is in Popper. In Popper, it's like a symmetrical trade where we're essentially saying, I'm going to try and gain, I'm going to have a lot of life gain in my deck to weather the storm of damage I'm taking for Shepherd of Rot, so that it's essentially one-sided. That's kind of the situation we want to orchestrate. In Popper Commander, this card is busted. If you get multiple activations off on this, there's a really good chance that you're going to win the game, I think. And so the ability to play this card not just once, but multiple times with our plethora of recursion effects, I think is going to be incredibly strong. NF says, I've been watching a ton of your videos and already a huge fan. This is my first time tuning in live. NF, that is wonderful news. I love hearing that. I'm glad you're enjoying the video. We're going to make sure to keep that content coming to you. I've got a ton of stuff that I've revealed to our patrons as a bunch of early access stuff. And we have a lot of really exciting stuff coming up here. I've already made the thumbnail for 7 new videos that are going to be coming out here soon. So if you want access to that, you can always check out our Patreon, where we've got contribution levels from 2, 5, 10, all the way up if you want to support us that way. But yeah, mainly you should just know that we've got a bunch of content coming for you. So we're going to make sure you're plenty fed on the Popper Commander front. So Shepherd of Rot is a big part of this, and I do envision this deck being essentially like a mid-range black burn deck with some of the cards that we can play. The next one is Gary. This one needs no introduction. Gary is a very powerful, generically powerful black creature in these colors. It is also a zombie, and we are going to try to reuse Gary quite a bit. There's a lot of ways to do that. One is either by sacrificing it and then bringing it back with either Tortex, Return from Extinction, Raise the Draugr, Ghoul Caller's Chant, Ghoul Razor. There's a whole bunch of recursion mechanics. Or by casting an Undying Evil effect on it and then sacrificing it, or by just using Ghostly Flicker or Displace. There's a lot of ways that we can reuse this, and the asymmetric drain gain effect of this is monstrously powerful, and it's even better here because this is a 3/5, which is quite large. It's not going to die to very many things, and it's going to be a more useful attacker than it is in most other decks. The next one, and this is probably the one that right along Shepherd of Rot I'm most excited for, is Gem Palm Polluter. And this card is so cool. This thing is, it's not a 6 mana 4/3. Come on, folks. This is 2 mana cycling to drain one player for the number of zombies we have on the battlefield. Cycling is uncounterable unless they have the crab, the Mirror Shell crab. And so what this reads is 2 mana, draw a card, and then we're going to drain somebody for that amount of life. It's really they're losing that life. We're not gaining it ourselves. But the kind of circumstances we want to build into here is cycle Gem Palm Polluter for like 4 or 5, use Tortured Existence, swap it with a creature, Gem Palm Polluter, swap it with a creature, Gem Palm Polluter, swap it with a creature. You can see what I'm saying here. If somebody is kind of low, you can burst them out of the game super quick. And when you get to that 1v1, this card being in your graveyard is going to be a way to rapidly close the game on that player. We've got Chris Chanel, but where's the Stormcrow? Caw, caw. Yeah, we've got a fellow bird gang enjoyer here, I can tell. Good to see you, Chris. Glad to have you in the live stream. And by the way, in fact, speaking of popper and crows and birds, a really cool popper deck that has been seeing quite a bit of play lately as well is Cawgate, which is basically like Cawblade in Modern from the old Cawblade deck that was many years ago. But Basilisk Gate, Squadron Hawk, Brainstorm, Guardian of the Guild Pact, very cool deck. So. Anyways, Gem Palm Polluter here is another way that we can really close the game out. So I'm excited about this deck because it has a lot of staying power. It's in phenomenally interactive colors. It's making our less relevant creatures more relevant. It's skipping the command tax, and it has a really significant tools for essentially closing out the game. So it's not the kind of mid-range deck that has difficulty closing the game out. This one has powerful tools for doing so while also being, I think, very resilient. So these are some of the core cards here that we're looking at. And as you can see, we have 88 cards in the main deck, 17 in the sideboard. And I don't really know exactly how to, how to construct this, but there's a lot of things we can do here. So without further ado here, I'm going to get a little bit of water down my throat because this talking is thirsty business. And I think what we'll do is look at these cards from the standpoint of what is core and what is not. Because this buff that Narfi gives makes certain creatures that we might not otherwise play a lot better. Any creature that has evasion or makes more than one body is going to be really appealing to me. So let's start out by going up the curve. We have cards like Carnophage, 1 mana zombie, drains you for 1 every turn unless you want to tap it. The fact that we can actually just tap Carnophage and not take the damage is kind of nice because this is a 1 mana 3/3. And it's possible that cards like Carnophage and even Sangrophage, which is the 2 mana version of it, which we actually don't have in here. Let's bring that one. Sangrophage. There we go. Sangrophage, which is the 2 mana version of it that taps unless you pay 2, is actually going to be a 2 mana 4/4 in the deck, which is pretty cool. So we could explore those, having some really efficient beaters that come down early, and even late game, a 1 mana 3/3 is going to be relevant. We've got cards like Festering Mummy, which can leave behind some counters when it dies. We've got other versions of it like Shambling Goblin. There's a lot of these 1 mana creatures that drain a creature, or not drain it, but they make it smaller when they die. They may not be premium in this particular deck, but one way to look at them is on the defensive or on the offensive. A card like Shambling Goblin is a 2/2 with Narfi, and when it dies, it's going to put a counter on something, which can either mess with combat math or it just trades up with a 3/3, right? Because it's going to hit for 2, it's going to die, and then it's going to put the counter on their creature. These cheap creatures are also going to be phenomenal as top decks when we have Tortured Existence, because we can take that card, that Shambling Goblin, which is not good in the mid or the late game, and swap it for something in our graveyard that's actually really, really good, which means that our top card for 1 mana got upgraded significantly. So I think that these are all interesting to look at. We've got Shambling Ghast, kind of the same thing, also makes a treasure. We've got Nested Shambler, which is going to be really good here. It's going to produce a lot of different bodies. Although at the same time, I don't know what use we'll have for the bodies that it produces. So making squirrel tokens may not actually be all that premium, even though Nested Shambler tends to be at its best when it's paired with some way to increase its power. One way that we could take advantage of Nested Shambler and make a lot of creatures is with cards like Cranial Plating. Because this is a mid-range deck, we are going to be playing rocks. We are going to have Trinket Mage in this deck. We are going to have, ways to tutor up various different hate pieces, lands, card advantage with our Trinket Mage. And one of those cards that we're not going to be able to tutor with, we won't be able to tutor for it, but will benefit with the Nested Shambler, as well as just putting it on any of our creatures, is Cranial Plating. And a Cranial Plating on a Nested Shambler, making it like 5-6 power, with Narfi's buff. If it dies, it's going to make a lot of squirrel tokens, which is pretty cool. So we've also got cards like Highborn Ghoul, which are going to be amazing. The Intimidate, Fear, Unblockability type creatures are going to be amazing homes for Cranial Plating. So let's start by just adding these one by one. And something I've been doing lately that I want to show you all is, instead of tagging just creatures, I actually go mana value. So I go 2 MV, and this is particularly in decks where I want to be cognizant of my curve. And I think in this deck, because we are leaning into Tortured Existence, we do want to be cognizant that our curve isn't too heavy or isn't too small. We want to have a nice spread of them. And so I'm going to list these by mana value when we include the creatures. I really like the idea of Carnophage. I think that the life loss, if we build the deck properly, is going to be minimal. This one's going to be a #1 MV here. I really like the idea of the Ghastly Gloom Hunter here. This is actually a pretty cool creature that I actually think it's overlooked quite a bit. On the face value, it doesn't look that great. 2 mana, 1/1 flying lifelink. The evasion is really premium, however, and the lifelink is really strong, especially when you pair it with a Cranial Plating. And the cool thing is that if you top deck it in the late game, say you don't have a Tortured Existence to swap it out, what Ghastly Gloom Hunter is going to allow you to do is just pay 6 and get a 3/3 lifelink flying, which isn't good, right? But it's dynamic. It's a mana sink, right? This is just a way to spend a little bit more mana for something that's better in the late game, maybe when you're low on cards. And early game, it comes down and it hits people early and often, gives us control of the Monarch and the initiative, and basically allows us to break board stalls. So because of the fact that we have Cranial Plating in here too, I think Ghastly Gloom Hunter is going to be a good card for the deck. We also have Lazotep Reaver here, which amasses 1. This card is essentially putting 4 power and 5 toughness into the battlefield for 2 mana. That is really, really strong. So I really like that there. We have Nightscape Familiar, which is really strong. I mean, this is reducing the cost of our blue spells, which is our commander, by 1, while also being a zombie itself and regenerating. It's also a great target for Cranial Plating because it can just regenerate every time it fights in combat. So Nightscape Familiar is going to be great here as that, and we're going to actually go in and put this under ramp as well. Because that's what it is. A lot of folks don't like the way that I do. Well, I don't know if it's a lot of folks, but some folks don't like the way that I double stack my tags. But the reality is that a lot of times creatures or effects fall into 2 categories. Like you might play Feed the Swarm because it destroys enchantments, and I want to know how many of those I have. Usually I try to have 2 in a deck where I'm worried about Oubliette or Parasitic Impetus or something like that. But it also kills creatures, so you want to be able to track both of them. Okay, another one here would be the Sangrophage, which I think is going to be very aggressive in this deck. I like that one a lot. Going up the line on 2. We also have, oh wow, yeah, Vidalcan Ghoul is quite interesting. This is a 2 mana Dimir zombie, 1/1. When it becomes blocked, defending player loses 4 life. So this is kind of like a form of Afflict, kind of like Spellweaver Eternal or Kenra Eternal, where they're going to be punished for blocking. So it has a powerful form of card of evasion that may actually end up leading that person to just not wanting to block with this ever, which kind of means unblockable. So I quite like this here. I'm a big fan of evasive creatures right now for breaking board stalls. Oh, there we go. For breaking board stalls, for maintaining pressure on our opponents. These sorts of effects are really important. So you are going to see me prioritize cards like Changeling Outcast and Tormented Soul. Even Tormented Soul, even though it's not a zombie, I am probably still going to play it because I don't know how to say it, but like Tormented Soul, Dothy Slayer, Dothy Horror, Changeling Outcast, these cards are like regularly overperforming in like insane ways. I think we might even play the Slayer and the Horror as well. Dothy Horror, yeah. We'll come back to these if we don't have like a glut of good creatures, but I'm very impressed with these cards. I think, it's actually quite interesting. We do have ways to tutor for cranial plating because we have cards like Dimir Infiltrator, we have Muddle the Mixture, and what's the black one? Shred Memory. So if we did really want to build into cranial plating, that would definitely guarantee that we were going to play the Horror and the Slayer, perhaps even over cards like Sangrophage and Carnophage, because the evasion, the unblockability is just busted. It's just so strong. Kenra Eternal is quite interesting. Becomes kind of hard to block. It's a 3/3. It's a kind of okay. Spellweaver Eternal is a little bit more appealing to me just because we have the ways to make it even bigger than it already is. So that's pretty cool there. I think Tormented Soul will come in. Again, Tormented Soul is kind of like the copy of Changeling Outcast, but it's not a zombie. So Changeling Outcast is definitely more premium here because it's a zombie. It's like working with our synergies. But Tormented Soul is just a good black card. And the fact that it can't block doesn't really matter at all. It's purely an attacker. Okay, we have some other 2-mana creatures that I want to put in here. Siege Zombie is one of them. This card says tap 3 untapped creatures you control. Each opponent loses 1 life. This one is really interesting to me because if we get in a board stall where we're not able to effectively apply damage to people in combat, we can sit back and we can just like end step, drain everybody for a bunch of damage. It does sort of like take the place of attacking, which might not be very good, but it is something I'm interested in exploring with. If we go really wide, for example, with tokens of some sort, this could be good. So maybe we'll leave it here from now. I don't know. We'll see. Shambling Ghoul is a 3/4 in this deck, which is actually pretty big. So we'll move this into 2 drops here. We have Rancid Rats, which is a skulking, death-touching 1/1. The weird thing about giving this a buff is that it actually gets worse when it's got a buff. We don't care that it has 2 power. In fact, the skulk makes the 2 power bad. The death touch is interesting because we could potentially lean into some like longbow shenanigans with death touchers, but I think we're going to leave this one behind. Putrid Goblin and Undying creatures are really interesting here. When this dies, if it had no -1/-1 counters on it, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So with this one here, does this stick around? How does this work? Undying, if it had no +1/+1 counters on it. So there's no way to keep these around forever, is there? If we give so if it dies the second time, it gets another -1/-1 counter on it. Then it's got 2 -1/-1 counters. It dies, but it has the buff from Narfi. So do these things just stick around forever, or does this just... because it seems like when it dies, it has the counter on it. If it dies, if it had no -1/-1 counters on it, return it to the battlefield. So the first time it dies, it becomes a 1/1. Second time, it becomes it just dies, right? Because it has a -1/-1 counter. But it stays around because of the +1/+1. So this doesn't really die. Chat, let me know what you think of this one here. If this is one of those creatures that sticks around forever, then this becomes an unlimited source of, Village Rites, Corrupted Conviction, Deadly Dispute, Reckoner's Bargain. Lucifer, you'd have to remove the counters to return it for a second time. That's right. Got to take off. Love the content. I'll have to finish this tomorrow. Grave Merchant, thanks for stopping by, buddy. Glad to have you here. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Lucifer says you'd have to remove the counter. Yep. So this is no good. Basically, this reads like 2-mana 3/3 that comes back as a 2/2, which maybe that's good enough. It does make a good blocker. It does feed our corrupted conviction effects. Maybe that's fine. I mean, it just kind of depends on our curve. We'll slot it in for now. It just dies unless you can remove the counter. Yep, that makes sense. That was a little misread when I included it in here. For some reason, I thought that would work. Null Champion is another one that I was kind of interested in. It's a 2-mana 2/2 when it comes into play with Narfi. If you pay 3 mana, it goes up to a 4/2, which is a 5/3. I don't think that's going to make the cut because it's a lot of mana to basically buff it up, and it's still low toughness. So we're going to drop this into considering. Got Mire Triton, which like self-mills a little bit and gains us some life, has Death Touch. The life gain is kind of interesting. The fact that it's a 3/2 Death Touch is kind of cool. The self-mill is like not really what we're into, but it's above the curve. So I think we can play that one. We've got Tattered Mummy, which is coming in as a 2/3. When it dies, everybody's going to lose 2 except for us. I like these drain effects a lot, and I think this card is going to be good in the deck. We have White of Precinct 6, which I think is going to be really gross. I mean, am I wrong? Like 2 mana, 1/1. It's going to be a 2 mana 2/2, but it's going to come in way bigger when our opponent's creatures are, there's tons of creatures in the graveyard. It's going to pair well with sweepers and removal. I think we're definitely playing that. We'll have to look at Butcher Ghoul. Butcher Ghoul will be kind of the same thing as the Putrid Goblin, in the sense that it's like it comes in as a 2/2, it'll die and become a 3/3, and then we're getting essentially 2 uses off it, and the body is like a little more relevant. So this one's kind of interesting. We could definitely try that. I don't know. Compared to like evasive creatures as a part, or creatures that make 2 bodies right away, I don't know whether this is premium or not. So we'll slot it in and see how our slots are looking. Okay, so on from the 2-drops, we've got some more 1-drops we could look into here. There's probably like MV equals 1 type zombie. Yeah, let's see what there is at 1. Carrion Feeder could be an option here. We do have some ways to use the Carrion Feeder with like Festering Mummy type things, or with creatures that produce multiple bodies. The only problem is that Carrion Feeder is really awkward when you don't have food for it. The fact that it comes in as a 2/2 is pretty nice with Narfi, so we'll try it at first. We have Maggot Carrier, which drains everybody for 1. That could be fine, presuming that we have enough life gain to offset that symmetrical type stuff. But you can see that a lot of the creatures here at 1 are not phenomenal for zombies. Hey, Too Much Do, welcome. Glad to have you, buddy. Thanks for joining us. Corrupted or a Cursed Centaur would be a 1 mana 3/3, but you do need to sack a creature. So I don't know if that's really where I want to be. We'll have to look into this. It might be that like Festering Mummy, Shambling Gas, Shambling Goblin, the Physician, those kinds of things are really good if we pair it with the Carrion Feeder, just because they're bigger 1/1s. But let's go into the 3-drops. Aven Eternal here is going to be Gasoline, MV3 or 3MV. That's how I'm doing it. Yeah, like this is amassing 1, so we're going to get a 2/2 and we're going to get a 3/3. So it's 3 mana for 5 power, and 3 of it is flying. That's really, really good. I really like this kind of effect. We might even get other creatures like that as well. Like Falcon Abomination is a great example. Falcon Abomination is a zombie bird. It's going to make a Decayed token. Decayed tokens are zombies. They're not very good, but there are ways to use them. For one thing, Decayed tokens, people don't like to block them because they're going to die anyways. So it just feels really bad to block them unless you have a profitable way to just do that. So the 3/3 is going to be strong on the attack. This is producing 6 power when we cast it for 3 mana, and 3 of it is evasive. The other thing is that when the Decayed token attacks at end of combat, it sacks itself. So instead of sacking it to itself, we can sack it to a Corrupted Conviction, Village Rites, Deadly Dispute, or maybe to a Carrion Feeder. We'll see if that works out. So in the 3-drops, we've also got the Cadaverous Knight, which is interesting. This has a very expensive regenerate that I think we're unlikely to use. However, the combination of flanking and Narfi's buff do turn this into a 3 mana 4/4 kind of. It doesn't have any evasion though, so like 3 mana 4/4 is not very premium compared to like 3 mana, 6 power, evasive, that kind of thing. Caged Zombie is a really interesting one. It's going to be a 3 mana, 3/4, which is quite large. And it has the ability to repeatedly drain the opponents if we have things dying in play, which I think is quite likely that things will die. And we can always leave it untapped if nothing dies on our turn, and we can wait around the table. And then when something dies, then we drain everybody. So I think that this one's going to be very synergistic with our game plan. We have Crypt Rats. Crypt Rats is very much going to be in the deck. This is going to be a sweeper here because we're also going to have the ability to reuse normal creatures. Like, we don't have to use Ghoul Caller's Chant or Return from Extinction or Raise the Draugr as 2 mana draw 2 out of our graveyard. We can also just get 1 if it's good enough. And Crypt Rats is a very, very good card. So I don't think we'll be passing on that one. Cursed Minotaur is cool. This is a 3 mana 4/3 menace, which I think could be good. Same with a Dead Reveler, not going to be menacing, but it's going to be quite large. This one actually comes in as a 3 mana 4/5. I like the Cursed Minotaur a lot. Being able to apply pressure with menace is strong. We have a bunch of like weird regenerate cards, like the ghouls and stuff that we could play. Fleshbag Marauder. Let's have a talk about Mass Edicts right now. Let me know in chat what you think about this, because I don't really have my mind set on it, but Mass Edict creatures, when I started popularizing them a few years ago, really like nobody was playing a lot of them in cPDH. I know that in PDH people were playing them because there were commanders where it made sense in the casual sphere, but in competitive they weren't really looked at as very good. And I started to use these Mass Edict creatures because what I was observing was that my opponents would have very, very few creatures, but they always had one, and they tended to be either their commander, which was important, or a combo creature, because every combo requires a creature. So these Fleshbag Marauder effects were just like wildly high value, and being able to return them back in black with Mortuary Mire, Witch's Cottage, crop rotation to get those things, Haunted Fengraph, using Tortured Existence, using Reaping the Graves, just like there's a lot of different ways to like get these back and reuse them, turns them into insanely high value creatures. Like games where I would like use this, get 3 creatures that mattered, and then bring it back and do it again. It's like that one card, those 2 cards, the card that, the Edict and the creature that got the thing that got it back, is eating like 6 cards worth of value, which is nuts. Today, the meta has shifted dramatically, and there are a lot more creatures, and your odds are not nearly as consistent about hitting things that you care about. It doesn't mean they're bad. It means that they're inconsistent. They used to be very good, and now sometimes they're good, and sometimes they're atrocious. You play Fleshbag Marauder in a pod with like TPI and Gretchen in it, and Abdel or something, or like if you had like an iconic pod or something, Gretchen, Abdel, TPI, and Gut, right? This card is doing nothing. Like, you're gonna sack like Impulsive Pilferer to the Gut player. You might sack Abdel, which they just get to reuse. The Gretchen player sacks Gretchen, right, which they don't care about, and the TPI player sacks a token, and it just feels really bad. So, but the problem is that if you don't play them, you open yourself up to losing to Voltron strategies that are hard to interact with, like Bastion Protector or Sailor's Bane or something like that. So they're kind of a weird one where you really should still play a few of them, but they're not always going to do what you want, and sometimes they're going to be a dead card. Islane, welcome, buddy. Good to see you. I saw you were playing a game in your server earlier. Glad you made it. I'm doing well, thank you, and just enjoying the stream. I'm excited to work on Narfi. Aren't they an automatic play, but sometimes they do the thing. Also, Death triggers a lot of Black Deaths, so they provide more value. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why these things work, and a lot of reasons to play them. The meta's evolution has made them less consistent. However, they still find targets. Like, I'm actually helping record some audio for a fun bit of content I'm doing in collaboration with another content creator, doing some narration of one of their games, where an early Fleshbag Marauder just completely obliterated. Like, the Edict effects were so important in that game that without them, I would have, there just would have been a completely different game. So in some games, these are going to be stone cold nuts, and they're going to completely oppress people out of the game. And in others, they're just going to be terrible. I'm glad you won, Islane. Hell yeah, bringing the Zur back to cEDH. Oh, cool. So you're playing some cEDH. Fantastic. And for folks watching, you can check out Islane's content, The Possibility Storm, by the same name, on YouTube. He's got a great YouTube channel of cEDH and EDH and cPDH content. So Fleshbag Marauder here, though, it is a zombie. And if we have lots of little creatures, we can upgrade them, we can reuse them. I think that we're just going to play this card for that reason. So let's bring it in. Yeah, we're going to want to play that. Gangrenous Zombies is another one that is actually, it's a zombie. It's going to come in as a 3/3 for 3. If you're playing Snowlands, you can tap and sack it to deal 2 damage to each creature and each player. The fact that you can reuse this over and over again is quite good as an onboard sweeper. Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, Islane, you're great. I always like to support your content for sure. So thanks for doing what you're doing there. So yeah, let's try the Gangrenous Zombies. This one doesn't always work, and it can produce some weird tech like politics, because you're basically like telegraphing the sweeper. Yeah, Islane. And for those of you just stopping in here, let's take a look at Narfi. We'll just do a quick recap here. Narfi is a 5-mana 4/3 zombie wizard, legendary snow creature zombie wizard. That's a very long pipeline. You can see they almost couldn't fit it in the box here. It's a 4/3 for 5 in Dimir colors. You can pay 3 snow to return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, so you're skipping the command tax if it dies. And it gives a buff to all zombies and snow creatures. The snow creatures less relevant, but the zombies definitely relevant. So yeah, this is something that I've been wanting to work on for a long time. I've kind of had this one knocking around in my head as just a grindy Dimir mid-range deck. So Gangrenous Zombies, let's do that one there. Ghoul Raiser is great. This is a 3-mana 2/2, enters the battlefield. You return a zombie card. Again, that special text there. It doesn't say creature card. It's a zombie card from random to your graveyard to your hand. The random can suck, okay? But yeah, what do you want to do? It's 3 mana. You get a creature, you get a card. It's kind of like Phyrexian Rager, except that your creatures tend to be good, so it's like better than a random card. So I like this one quite a lot. There may even be ways to reuse that ETB if we want to build around it. Okay, so we're in 3 mana here. Hell Majesty, Ryan, I'm thankful for you. Thanks for the great content. Aw, that's always sweet. We're getting a lot of positive feedback today. I appreciate it. It's the affirmation is always very welcome. Thanks for joining us. And Hell Majesty, I don't know if I've seen you in chat before. Perhaps you have. Sorry if you have and I didn't remember, but it's great to have you here regardless. Thanks for coming and joining, and thank you for the kind words. We've got Hobbling Zombie. I'm starting to see a little bit of a pattern here with like Death Touchers. And if we get deep enough into Death Touchers, I might just slot in a Viridian Longbow, because I'm going to play Trinket Mage to tutor up the Viridian Longbow if that's the case. And the Hobbling Zombie is like 3 mana, put 6 power into play. 3 of it is Death Touching. Gangrenous says equals Rattlesnake if they hold back cards because you're yeah. So Gangrenous Zombies can do that. It can also make a player who is really punished by this kill you. So like they might suicide themselves into you to try and get some damage, because you can't give this haste really like you could with like Strider Harness or Haunted Cloak or something like that. But yeah, it's a weird one. If we play Unearth, there's other synergies there. We might play Unearth anyways, because our curve is actually like, getting back Shepherd of Rot right away, getting back Crypt Rats, getting back Gangrenous Zombies, getting back a Falcon Abomination of, Fleshbag Marauder, Cage Zombie. There's a lot of ways that could actually be really strong. So I kind of want to experiment with it and see. Yeah. So, and because our creatures get a little bit bigger, they're not as likely to die to the damage because of Narfi. So yeah, we'll try that one. Headless Scab is kind of interesting here. This one here is a 3 mana 3/6. It comes into play when you cast it. You have to exile a creature from your graveyard, but it's going to be a 4/7, which is fucking huge. Pardon my French if if you're offended, but I don't know. I got a mouth like a sailor, so comes into play tapped. But we're not always going to be able to cast this if we have a creature in the graveyard. So I don't know. We'll have to see. Islaine says I'm lurking, or I'm initiating lurk mode, Ryan. But have a great stream. I'm very invested in the mid-range straps right now, so always looking to more decks to work with. Yeah, Islaine. I have to be honest with myself that based on the fact that mid-range isn't played by very many people. And that it's a very underdeveloped part of the cPDH meta. It is kind of largely what I've been focusing on and what I'll probably continue to focus on because mid-range is hard and teaching people how to play it is important. The reason it's hard is because you have to know what everybody else is doing really intimately and know how to disrupt them. And kind of like the same way that makes Reed Duke a really, really incredible player in 60 card formats is knowing how and when to pivot and how to build your deck in mid-range is really, really important. So I'll be keeping the mid-range content coming. There's a lot of mid-range decks coming your way. So yeah, hope you enjoy that. And yeah, glad to have you here. Lucifer says, I love that Gangrenous is from Ice Age, but it isn't a snow creature. Oh, that's so funny, isn't it? Like it should be. It benefits from snow things, right? Islaine says, check my Sivirus Cloakwood Hermit list. It's a good example, IMO. Yeah, that Sivirus, for those listening right now, Sivirus Cloakwood Hermit is a great Golgari deck. I love to see Golgari doing well right now. It grinds really well. It has a source of pressure and card advantage in the command zone. And frankly, drawing like Ancestral, it's like Ancestral Recall, from like turn 3 or 4 onwards every turn. At the cost of stuff that you don't care about, and it's really sweet. So, and the nice thing is that in the late game, it becomes even stronger card advantage, and you might actually start to be given things that people can't deny you because they can't afford the life. But it's a deck that allows you always hit your land drops, you always hit your card advantage, you always hit your removal and your edicts and all this other random shit, right? Like the only thing they're not going to give you is like a Pestilence, a Crypt Rats, a Gary. Big stuff. And the stickers are very good there too, the ability to reuse them over. So yeah, definitely a very cool deck. Lucifer says, saw that, pretty sick list. Yep, definitely. Hell's Majesty says, big mid-range fan over here. Glad to hear it. Yep. Well, we need more people playing mid-range. It's underrepresented in the format. For a long time, it was underperforming. And I think that's largely because it's harder to play. It takes a better pilot. And because there's just not that many people playing it. So, I'm one of the few people that I feel like is actively, frequently playing mid-range. There are some of them out there. I know that... oh boy, I had a bunch of names that came to mind of people in the community that are doing. Obstinate plays it quite a lot, plays Passageway Seer quite a bit. But yeah, mid-range is my thing. It's like I love mid-range. When I play 60 card, I'm a total degenerate. I play like Cycling Storm, Reanimator, gross stuff, right? Like anything Storm related I like. But in multiplayer, I don't favor like high risk, high reward strategies. I want consistency. Islaine says it definitely takes a grind of practice to get perfect the play patterns. Yeah, and the rewards for playing mid-range correctly are really strong because you're positioning yourself in such a way that if you deploy your resources right, you're generally not the problem at the table. As long as you aren't like running out, Pestilence on like turn 4 like a fool, or like bringing a ton of attention to yourself, you can ride through the storm with like not as much interaction pointed your way and generate a lot of card advantage and kind of like feast off the politics of the table. So Hell Majesty says, I'm perfecting my mid-range Kaleen Reclusive Painter deck. Absolutely love it. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so on with this here. Hobbling Zombie, let's get in that in here as well. We've got Ingenious Scab, which I don't think we're gonna do. Got this Drake here, can only block creatures with flying. Sidraxis Alchemist, if you control a blue permanent, then you can bounce something. Servant of Timaret is kind of interesting. The fact that it's actually a 2/4 means that we can actually attack with this, whereas before a 1/3, not a very good attacker. And it regenerates, it's a zombie, it's draining everybody. It's kind of like extort every time you attack. So Servant of Timaret actually, if it untaps, it swings for 4 every turn. In this deck, it's 5. And I really like these mass drain effects. I really, really, really like them. We have Severed Legion, which is going to be a 3/3 fear for 3. I don't know if that's going to be good enough. I don't think it is. Spark Reaper is quite interesting. It's a zombie, sacks creatures to draw cards and gain life. It will protect us against an oubliette. It'll protect us against any sort of, aura that gets placed on our commander by essentially allowing us to sack it and then bring it back. I think I kind of like this here, actually. Stitched Drake was one of the reasons I wanted to build this. The scabs, okay? And chat, I really want to hear what you have to say about the scabs, because the scabs are built to be better than their cost, right? 3 mana, 3/4 flying is like not common rate, okay? Flying is usually going to mean you're a 2/2 for 3 mana with flying. This is a 3/4. In this deck, it's a 4/5 with flying for 3 mana, but you have to exile a card out of our graveyard. So the thing that I've been mulling over is that we have a lot of ways to self-mill in these colors, but self-mill is so weird. And I don't like it. I don't like self-mill. I don't like how it puts things into our graveyard that we don't want there. I hate the idea of self-milling a Pestilence into our graveyard. I hate the idea of self-milling a Tortex into our graveyard. Things that we can't get back in these colors. And I hate the idea of putting removal in there. It's like, I don't know. I don't know whether these will be playable if we don't have ways to put creatures in the graveyard. They are good enough that maybe they're fine either way, but I mean, like a 4/5 flyer in the air for 3 mana is like really, really strong. We don't have there's no lack of ways to fill our graveyard. Cards like Mire Triton, there's a ton of zombies that do that. Larder Zombie can do it. Maybe Larder Zombie belongs in here for that reason. But it unlocks cards like Headless Scab, which is huge. 4/7 for 3 mana. Stitch Drake is huge. Advanced Stitchwing, also very good. There's just a ton of these. So I don't know. We'll have to see. But I'm very interested to hear what you all think about that and how we might orchestrate it. Big looting effects can help and be more flexible than self-mill. Yeah, so we could play cards like Ransack the Lab and Strategic Planning, which are blue and black. They're the same thing. Look at the top 3, pick one of them, put the other 2 in the graveyard, which would work. Yeah. We could even play cards like Scattered Thoughts, which is 4 mana instant speed factor fiction kind of. It's like, look at the top 4, take 2 of them, put in your hand, put the other 2 in your graveyard. Let me know, are there other, maybe one of you can do a little parallel search while I'm live here and tell me what other blue and black effects would allow us to pitch things into the graveyard selectively. I mean, it's careful study, but I don't want to play that because it's card disadvantage, and we don't. Yeah, I don't really want to do that. I want it to be at least 1/1 or 2/1. So let's do these ones in the sideboard, because the sideboard is where I put cards that I'm like really heavily considering. A Draugr Recruiter is going to be sick in this deck. 4 mana, 3/3. It'll become a 4/4. Every time we attack, we can pay 4 to return a creature from our graveyard to your hand. This is absolutely going in this deck because, yeah. Yep. We've got Fell Horseman, which was recently printed. This is this kind of, this is just a really strong effect. 2 mana, return a card from our graveyard. It comes in as a 4/4. If it dies, you put it on the bottom of your library. So it kind of, it's just like 2 cards on 1. It's card advantage, and it's a zombie. So we'll do this in 4 MV, and then we'll take this and we'll also put that in Recursion and Reanimation. Compulsive Research, that's another one. Yeah, absolutely. Compulsive Research would be good. Gavany Unhallowed. We've got Diregraph Scavenger. This card is actually really good. It's a Death Toucher. It's going to be a 3/4 in the deck, which is great. It enters the battlefield. You can exile a card from a graveyard. It can be any graveyard. And if it's a creature card, we drain everybody for 2 and we gain 2, which is just really strong already. I really, really like these effects. Oh yeah, Herald of the Dreadhorde, Amassing. This is going to be a 4/3 that puts into play a 3/3. So this is like a ton of value, lots of bodies. Infectious Horror is so cool here. Forbidden Alchemy, also a great choice. Ezra Sassman, welcome to the chat. I don't know that I've seen you before. Glad to have you here. Thanks for joining us. And great recommendation. Forbidden Alchemy would be a very good one. Discerning Taste is good too. Forbidden Alchemy, Organ Hoarder. Organ Hoarder is a great choice. And Rowan's Grim Search, also very good. I think there's a couple that don't say draw in them that are 4 mana, instant speed, like Bargain, I think is one of them, that basically look at the cards. You pick 2, you lose some life, and 1 goes into the graveyard or 2 goes into the graveyard. But yeah, these are all great. I'm going to be coming back in these and adding these once we get through the creatures. Dahada's Ploy, yep, there's another one. Although, let's see, Dahada's is draw 2, lose 1. Gain life equal to the number of discarded cards. You can jumpstart it. So that's actually pretty good. Dahada's Ploy is very good. It's actually card advantage if you use it twice. And it's instant speed and it's life gain. So yeah, good recommendation. Ooh, this is pretty cool. Grimdrauger. You can pay 2 to give it Menace and +1/+0. So it's a 3 mana 4/3 that can become a 5/3. That might be good enough with the Menace. But Infectious Horror is a card I want to talk about. Infectious Horror is a card that we commonly see black aggro decks playing, but it's 4 mana. So it's a lot of mana to play. But the effect is nuts. If you can attack multiple times with this, you're dealing so much damage. If you attack twice, and it doesn't die the first time, so you were able to attack another, then in a normal black aggro deck, you would hit for 4 damage for the 2 attacks, and you would hit for a total of 6 to each time. So 4 + 6 + 6 is going to be 16 damage for 2 swings, which is insane. That's a lot of damage. And in this deck, it's a 3/3, which makes it a lot harder to block, and it doesn't hit us. So I think this is a card we absolutely want to play. Jarl of the Forsaken is another one I dropped in here. I basically put every zombie that I thought would be potentially worth considering in here. So this one is a 4 mana 3/2 flash. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target creature or planeswalker that an opponent controls that was dealt damage. I don't think these effects are very good, so I don't like this. Yeah, it's just a flash. It's just a flash creature that you can discount over turns. I don't know. Yeah, it's just not that good. Rank Officer, this would be a good one for discarding. It's a 4 mana 3/3/1, which is small, but it allows you to discard a card and make a 2/2. So it's going to discard, it's going to have that effect, which is good, and it's going to make a 2/2. So you're actually putting 7 power into play for 4 mana, and it's a drain effect. You can exile creatures from your graveyard to drain people for 2, which I think is going to be really good. We have Sightless Ghoul, which has Undying. I don't think that's really where we want to be. Suspicious Shambler, though. This is a card that was printed in, I think it was in Jumpstart or in Modern Masters. Let's see. Oh, just Jumpstart. Yeah. And this card is a 4 mana 4/2, so not very good, but it's a zombie, and you can pay 6 to exile it and create 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, which, holy crap. Yeah, that's 6 mana, 6 power. But we paid 4 mana for 5 power, so we definitely want this. And you can see our curve is already starting to fill up a little bit on the top end here. So, you know, we'll just have to see. Maybe we do need to dive primarily into zombies if we want to maximize our value here. Two-headed zombie is a menacing creature. I think actually that, like, we have enough zombies that cards that just have evasion that are on curve aren't going to be good enough. So we'll put Cursed Minotaur on... Yeah, on the sideboard here. Yeah, this Suspicious Shambler, Sussy Shambler, basically Grave Titan. Yeah, that's one way to look at it. Yeah, this is great. I love this, and the text is amazing. It was a perfect disguise, at least until its stomach started moaning. Sometimes my stomach moans too when I'm hungry. Vengeful Dead is a way to drain people. It's like kind of on curve. It's kind of like a second copy of Falkenrath Noble. I do like this card. Viscera Dragger is interesting because we can run it out as a 4 mana 4/4, or we can cycle it for 2 to draw a card, and then we can unearth it again and it'll have haste. I don't know if this is really where we want to be. Zombie Musher has a cheap regenerate ability. And it has Snow Landwalk, which will often read unblockability because a lot of decks play, you know, snow lands for Skred. That's the main thing. but it's kind of expensive. It's nowhere near the power level of some of these ones that put multiple tokens into play. We have Advanced Stitchwing, which actually is something that can come back from the graveyard over and over again, and it is a really big flyer. This will be a 4/5 flyer, but it is expensive. It's like below the curve, whereas like the Stitchwing is above the curve by a lot. So I think we're going to pass on this one, but we'll put it into the sideboard. Diregraph Horde, we're definitely playing this card. 5 mana, it's going to be a 4/5, and it's going to put 2 Decayed tokens into play while exiling 2 target cards from graveyards. So you can actually pick and choose different graveyards. So I like this one a lot. It is 5 mana, but holy shit, this puts a lot of power into play. 5 MV. This is going to be Graveyard Hate as well. And we actually need to go back and find... Let's actually move these things around. These are no longer core. These are just recursion and reanimation. Tortured Existence, same thing. We're going to do recursion and reanimation. Shepherd of Rot is going to be MV2 here. And I don't think we'll measure all the drain. We won't organize all the drain. We will need to look at the amount of life gain we have. Because otherwise, we really need to make sure we have enough so that the Gem Palm Polluter, or so that the Shepherd of Rot doesn't just like completely destroy us. This is actually a draw spell. And let's just make a category called Drain. And then the drain will actually be life gain. So instead of doing life gain, we'll just say drain. And in some cases, they won't be gaining us life, but that's just easy to keep the categories that way. Edicts, draw. Okay, cool. Good. And we're at 5 mana. We've got Mockrit Behemoth, which I thought would be really cool to play in this deck because it is so big and it is evasive. This thing is going to be an 8/7. It's already almost impossible to kill. Like, this thing dies to so few things. And if we have a lot of cheap creatures, sacking it is kind of just like, it's just fucking huge. It's just so big. And we could even sack Narfi, right, in the late game. If we just sack Narfi and then return it to the battlefield, that's like not bad. So I do want to try that. Rottide Garganta, another one of the edicts. This one is particularly good in this deck because it is a zombie. This thing does not have to exploit, which is good, because exploit can be interrupted. One of the problems with Rottide Garganta, and the reason it doesn't see as much play, is because first, it's 5 mana. But second of all, if you play it and then the extort trigger on the stack, somebody goes and kills, let's see, like kills the thing you want to sacrifice, and then I just had such a brain fart. I don't know if you guys saw that, like, cross-circuiting happening. Rewind. The second reason that this card isn't that good is because if you kill Rottide Garganta on the stack with the exploit trigger and you exploit, Rottide is not there to see that it sacked a creature, and you won't get to cause an edict. So you can counterspell this if you want to protect your own creature by killing it on the stack. So it turns your opponent's removal into a counterspell for edicts. But one of the nice things is that you can just play this. It's just a 5 mana 5/4, right? And there's no forced edict like the other ones. They're all forced. And this one is much bigger. It's actually a 5 mana 6/5 in this deck. So I think this is going to be a card that we want in this particular deck. We're also going to drop this under edicts here. We've got some other cool ones, like Silmgar's Butcher is a 5 mana 3/3 with exploit. When it exploits, target creature gets -3/-3. So this is like an ETB destroy effect, essentially. Creature removal attached to creatures is not a very common thing. We don't really have, other than Faceless Butcher, we don't have cards like Ravenous Chupacabra. You know, they're not, or like Necrotal type stuff. And I wish we did, but Loathsome Curator is another good one. Yep, Loathsome Curator is a great card. I don't know why I don't have it here, but it's a good one for the top of the curve. Exactly. Taking small things, sacking them, killing something is definitely like worth doing. And when we have the Monarch and the Initiative in our deck, the ability to flip those off the top and kill something is a huge value swing. It also means that when you're going into the Throne of the Dead 3, you can better... it makes the Throne of the Dead 3 a way to look for removal, but also a way to like increase your board presence at the expense of your opponents. So, Lotleth Giant deck. Maybe. Lotleth Giant, it only hits one player. It really demands that we have a lot of dead stuff. And I don't know that we will. And I don't know that I want to orchestrate having a lot of dead stuff by like sacking a ton of our own shit. So I don't know if it is a Lotleth Giant deck. Maybe it's just good enough if it nugs somebody for 5. Kind of like just a single-use jump home polluter. Yeah, let's look into that. Silumgar's Butcher. I'm going to put this one in sideboard because I don't know whether that one will work. Silumgar's Scavenger is a really good card, I think, but I don't know if it's going to fit into the deck. So we're going to draw it into sideboard there. Unhallowed Phalanx is funny as hell. 4 mana, 114. There are things you can do with this that you can really like. It's a dumb card. We're not playing this, but it is the biggest creature in the format in a lot of ways. This is the biggest butt in the format. It's more of a mill synergy than zombie. Exactly. Yeah, it's not zombie specific. Yeah. If it had any evasion or if it hit every player, that would make it worth it. If it hit every player, I would play it in a lot of black decks actually, but it does not. Toxic Nim is a funny card, okay? Let's talk about Toxic Nim. 6 mana is a lot. But this is a zombie, and it's 4 power, which means it's 5 power infect, and it has regenerate. This card is kind of bonkers. You can 2-shot people with it. It doesn't die very easily. I don't know. I feel like this one probably is worth experimenting with. The ability to beat life gain right now is really, really good. That's why commander damage is insane. Yeah, Infect fans, you found your home. This I think is a really good place for it. Ezra says, I feel like there's already enough sacrificing to support 1 to 2 scab creatures without extra help. Yeah, that could be the case, especially because we will play Village Rites, Corrupted Conviction, Deadly Dispute, Reckoner's Bargain, that kind of stuff. So I think we should try Toxic Nim. It's 6 mana, which is just crazy for this deck. I don't love that, but it's Infect. I mean, the problem with Infect is that when your opponent like takes a bunch of Infect and then they kill your single Infect creature and you don't have other Infect creatures in the deck, all of your attack steps with that creature were totally wasted. So the only reason we'll consider this one is because it's a 2-shot and because it regenerates. I think that's it. Otherwise, I just don't want to play Infect in decks that care about dealing damage. Twisted Abomination is an easy include. This card is just very strong. It's like I put it in every black deck I play almost, unless it's a very aggressive deck with a low curve, because early on it's like cycling to find a land. Later on, if we have something in the graveyard we absolutely need, we can get Witch's Cottage, and we can tutor up Witch's Cottage, put it into play, get that creature back, and we can always just play it, and it's going to be a 6/4 regenerate in this deck. But normally it's just like a regenerating Gurmag Angler. Cards like this also give us the ability to use like Dread Return, right? To like turn 2. I guess it's a little bit hard with the 2 mana cyclers, but you can Dread Return these things back and have big threats. And I think Dread Return will be good in this deck, so I like that one a lot. Grixis Slave Driver is kind of interesting. It's a 6 mana 4/4 that when it leaves the battlefield, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. This won't die. So it's just a overcosted 5/5. This is like really good when you're looting a lot. Maybe this would be good if we were actually using card selection type stuff that puts it into the graveyard. Because when this is busted is when you go 4 mana, unearth it uncounterably. Here's my 5/5 haste, attacks, and then when it dies, it leaves behind a 3/3. That's like a ton of value. So let's bring it in. And let's actually put it under 4 MV, because the goal here is that we would never cast this for full price. Yeah, I think that sounds kind of cool. Pestilence, absolutely going to be in the deck. There's no questioning that. This is going to go under draw. Draw, you can see I've already added these ones here because they're just really good black cards. They're some of the better card advantage. Raise the Draugr is pretty cool. This is very similar to Return from Extinction. It's 2 mana, get 2 zombies back at the same time. So I think I like that quite a bit. Reckoner's Bargain is going to be draw. Okay, Night's Whisper is draw. Return from Extinction is recursion and reanimation. Sign in Blood is draw. I think Unearth is actually going to be really good here. Unearth also being just 2 mana draw card is very nice and flexible. So we're going to put that under draw too because we can just cycle it. Wander in Death is another one that I oftentimes play for the same reason because you can just cycle it, so it's like really flexible. But I think because we have Return from Extinction, maybe we only play the instant one and we play like the Wander in Death instead, because one of the problems with recursion effects is that they're not immediate card advantage. They're efficient card advantage when you have stuff that's died. But if you just need to hit your land drops or you just need to find removal, these recursion effects don't really do what you want them to. So I don't know. We've got Ghoul Caller's Chant. We just have to be careful that we don't load too much on this because it'll actually occupy slots that need to be other things. So maybe we will throw Wander in Death in there and then we'll approach that again later on. Because again, Wander in Death can just draw you a card in the early game if you need to hit your land drops, whereas the other ones can't. Read the Bones, Siphon Mind. Is Nasty End worth it because Narfi can self-reanimate? Absolutely. Great call. Yep. Nasty End is phenomenal. This is a very powerful card in any black deck that has a legendary commander. We're definitely going to play that card. Yeah, I love the idea that we could, like, I don't know, like after maybe turn 4, we play Narfi, turn 5 or something, we just like need some more cards and we go sack it and then instant speed bring it back. Like that seems really strong. In fact, like all of these sacrifice draw effects are so much better because of Narfi, aren't they? Wow. Maybe we don't play traditional draw. I mean, that might be it. We might not play. I mean, I've done this quite a bit in some decks lately, but maybe we only keep the 2 mana ones. We don't play anything more. We might still play Siphon Mind because Siphon Mind is such a big card advantage spell, but I don't know. A lot of our stuff has to do with creatures, and draw 3 is good, but I don't know. So here's some other creatures. Larder Zombie is one that we could consider. It is a 1 mana 2/4. So if nothing else, this is actually like a really big blocker that can give us card selection. So I actually kind of like Larder Zombie. It doesn't attack, but it's just a chungus. You know, this thing is thick. It's big. We've got Priest of the Haunted Edge, and as I mentioned this card, we'll have summoned Finhorn Brownie, who is a big fan of this card. I think this might be the only home I can possibly imagine for Priest. Priest would be so staple. Let me put it this way. If Priest could do this at instant speed, every black deck would also run Snowlands, but it's sorcery speed, so it sucks. In this deck, it's a 1/5, which means it can attack. And we can actually reuse it over and over and over again. It's very slow, but I don't know, maybe it's good enough. Hell Majesty says, I'm out of here for the night. Good luck. I'm excited to see how this shapes up. Well, Hell Majesty, thank you for joining us today. It was great having you here. And I hope you have a great rest of your day or your night, wherever you're at. So I think that we are going to play Priest of the Haunted Edge and try it out. If there's any deck that could like abuse it, this is going to be the one, because just having like a repeat source of removal on a creature is good. So we'll move this to the main deck. You can see me using a little trick here where in the sideboard, you go and you change the tags first, either by dragging them over to the side or by changing the tags this way. With this, you tag them first if you have multiple tags, and then you move it in the main deck and it self-organizes, which is nice when you have something that has multiple tags. Organ Grinder is another card I wanted to share with you guys. This one is remove 3 cards from your graveyard from the game. Target player loses 3 life. It's target player though, so that's not going to work. Liliana's Elite gets buffed for each creature in our graveyard. Probably not good enough. Organ Hoarder, I think, is going to be a card that we want in the main deck. So we're going to put this under draw, and then we'll put it under 4 MV. You can see our curve is getting kind of chonky. A little bit chonky, but, you know, what are you going to do? Scab Goliath would be crazy if we could actually make this work, because it would come in as a 7/10 trample. It's so heavy. I don't know. Oh, it's so tempting to play these like massive creatures. You know, this thing doesn't die to very much. It dies to a lot of black removal, but it doesn't die to very much else. And it has trample, which is a big deal. Malfed Twins is another one that's really cool, where it's a 5/5 in this deck for 6. And when it dies, it's going to create 2 black zombie creature tokens, which are gonna. That's putting. This is actual Grave Titan in this format, except that it's when it dies. So I don't know. We could try it. I think it's probably going to get the cut, unless we sack it to itself. The funny thing is, if we sack it to like a Corrupted Conviction, then it's like a 6 mana, 6 power on the battlefield, and it gave us a body, in a sense, because the zombies are actually bigger than the body it came on. It's a little weird. Like, you don't want. I don't know. There's kind of like better ways to do this, I feel like. So yeah, this stuff is all not that great. I don't think we're going to need Read the Bones, to be quite honest. I don't think that's going to happen. And let's not do Siphon Mind for now. I was looking at Callous Dismissal, bounce a non-land permanent, make a 2/2. I thought that was pretty good, but it's a sorcery, so that's actually going to eliminate it from contention. What other things in considering? Yep, okay, there we go. So we have all these creatures here, and a lot of these aren't going to make the cut. Considering for that one, Unhallowed Phalanx, I don't think Viscera Dragger is very good. Sightless Ghoul is not very good. Ingenious Scab, not very good. Grimjogger is okay. The Drake, I think it can go. Sidraxis can non-land permanent. I'm not like wildly impressed by this, and our removal is going to be much better because we're in Dimir. We've got like the best removal in the game. So, Cadaverous Knight, Spellweaver Eternal is pretty cool, but I think we can cut these. Dredgescape Zombie is kind of cool too. It's like coming back, once or twice. Nested Shambler. I don't know about these. I just don't know. Okay. Let's start filling out just the good black stuff. And we have a lot of it currently, but let's go and get our stuff organized too. We've got the Vengeful Dead, which is Drain. We've got the Infectious Horror, which is Drain. We've got the Rank Officer, which is Drain. We've got the Diregraph Scavenger, which is Drain. Servant of Timeret is Drain. This is under Sweepers. This is under Drain. And we really want ones that gain life. Gaining life is going to be so important. And it might be so important that cards like Sangrophage and Carnophage just don't make it. Because we probably have better things to play. So I'm just going to move these into the sideboard right away. Carnophage is... these things are coming down early is the funny thing. They come down early, and it takes a little while for Narfi to come out. So I think I'm actually going to kind of back up on that. Tormented Soul, not a zombie, but that's probably fine if we don't have some zombie. Now, even though we're a typal deck, we are just going to play like the good initiative stuff. Like, you should just play these cards. The initiative is just really strong. Oh, nope. Gotta capitalize it, apparently. I don't like that it's a capital sensitive. That's kind of annoying. MV, there we go. Yeah, aggressive mid-range decks, control decks, they just kind of go everywhere. They're just really, really strong effects. Even in combo decks, they're like combo outlets. So this one is going to be draw. I put them under draw because initiative is drawing you cards. It's like better than card advantage in a lot of ways. Aarakocra Sneak is going to be the same thing. We're going to do a draw and 4 MV like that. I don't know if we'll do the Monarch. Monarch is really good when you can get the creatures back. And Thorn of the Black Rose is just a really good card in general. But I think our card advantage is going to be pretty good. The fact that we have Narfi, and Narfi can, like, we have a lot of defensive options that allow us to, like, turtle up pretty nicely. Our creatures get big. We have lots of blockers because of the token stuff. The decayed tokens don't block. But in the case of, like, Aven Eternal with the Amass, or, you know, maybe Putrid Goblin. Oh, Shattered. This is also Drain. Or with the Mire Triton or the Lazotep Reaver. And we also have the control of it with these unblockable creatures, flying creatures. I think that it's pretty solid. Let's see a little. There we go. What other O tag edict, O each type creature? What other edict creatures do we have? Oh, there's no tag for edict? No way. Wow. That's a miss. Sacrifice each creature. Okay. So like Chain Devil is one of the better edicts because it's non-token creatures, but it's also not a zombie. There's Demon Disciple, not a zombie. But like the edict effects are good in this deck, so maybe we'll add them and see if we have room. I think we'll skip on Slum Reaper because it's not a zombie. It's more expensive than Demon's Disciple and Fleshbag Marauder, and it's kind of doing the same thing, so I don't think that's premium. And the Abyssal Gatekeeper, I think, is a horror. Maybe a Phyrexian horror or something like that. Vengeful Dead might actually not be that good. Whenever some zombie dies, each opponent loses one. It is a big drain. It's actually bigger than Falkenrath Noble, which is quite appealing because Falkenrath Noble is it's gaining you life, but it's only hitting one player. And Falkenrath Noble has this weird thing, and I don't really like this, but where like an opponent sweeps your board and you punish them for draining them. But if they're not the person that you're supposed to be killing, they get to sweep your board for free because you shouldn't send that damage at them. So say there's an opponent who isn't the problem at the table and they decide to sweep you, you probably shouldn't just blindly send the damage back at the person who hurt you. You're supposed to try and kill the person who's most likely to kill you. So in a lot of cases, like Falkenrath Noble reads like, if somebody sweeps your board, then, you know, fuck somebody else up, which is like, I don't know, that's weird. I don't like it. I don't like that very much at all. So Vengeful Dead, I think, is going to be better here. Suspiciously, we are low on life gain. We do not have a lot of life gain. We have Gary and some other stuff. We're going to need to fix that problem. Otherwise, we won't be able to really profit properly off of our drain effects. We'll just be too scared to use them. So O gain, O lose, O each type. Well, and actually this might be where we we might have to play some non-creature drain effects for this to work well, because some of these aren't zombies, but maybe that's fine. Like Arrogant Outlaw is a really good one. I really like this one. There's Blood Tithe. This is the non-creature version of it. So let's move these into the sideboard. Etched Familiar is another one that I really like. This one is a dies trigger, so we don't really have control over it. There's Colostria Healer, which requires an ally, which we're not going to have. Lampad of Death's Vigil. I don't really want to sacrifice too much of our own stuff. This is really good in aggressive decks because you get to the end, you just untap and you yeet your board at the table and you win. Malakir Blood Priest, though, does look like it could work because it's party mechanic. And we have a wizard in the command zone. So this is Cleric Wizard. And then the question would be, what other creature types do we have? 4 warriors. 4 warriors, 1 wizard. how many rogues? One rogue. Oh, two. Changeling. Oh, and this is also a wizard. This is also all the things. Interesting. Because this is like a small Gary in a way. Let's put it in the sideboard. We're more concerned with the gain than we are the drain. So we're not going to play Blight Priest and Epicure. Night Market Lookout, not very good in this deck. Okiba Reckoner Raid is actually very good. It's a 1 mana, drain everybody for 2, so you essentially 1 mana deal 6, gain 2, but it's only gaining 2, so let's add this one to the sideboard. We don't have Knights. This one says discard a card, each other player loses 2 life. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. Wow, that's actually pretty big. You gain 6. Huh. It's expensive though. Holy crap. 3 and discarding a card? I don't think that's where we want to be. That's really painful. Vampire Spawn though, this is a classic. You know, like Vermin Gorger is also pretty good. The fact that we actually, you know, Vermin Gorger is interesting because we can sack our commander, right? So this becomes 3 mana, tap Vermin Gorger, drain 2. Because we can sack our commander, pay 3 to bring it back, and it's not really like losing our commander. I kind of like that. Like the way, like looking at Narfi as kind of like fodder is a very interesting idea, given that it's a 5 mana commander, right? It's not really fodder, but it kind of can be. Blood Tithe, Siphon Soul, those are some other ones. These ones are big effects, right? This one drains 3 from everybody, and then you gain 9. The other one is drain 2, gain 6. It's actually damage on that one, which is weird. This one's spelled weird too. Yeah. It's spelled different than Siphon Mind, which is strange. So this one deals 2 damage to each other player. You gain life equal to the damage dealt this way. It's pretty cool. They're not creatures though. And maybe that's fine. We still have to cut a lot of cards. Let's get the Carrion Feeder out of here into sideboard, I guess. We'll just sideboard all of these for now. Maybe we're abandoning a little bit of like the early, of like the distributed curve. Chain Devil is like really good in this deck. I think we do probably want this. Yeah. Like that. Let me get some music going on for myself here. Let's see. The silence is deafening. Let's go. Yeah, some liquid drum and bass. I like that. If you all like drum and bass, here I'll post a link to this channel here. It's called Kush Sessions. Kush Sessions. But it's just really good drum and bass music. So if you like that kind of thing, this is a great place to do it. Here is what I'm going to be listening to right there. Oh, it's because my headset's off. That's funny. There we go. Bingo. Cool. All right, so going back to this here. We have the Nightscape Familiar. I wonder if we also want to play the Stormscape Familiar. It'll depend on what our white-black our balance is. We're almost all black. Wow. Okay, so that actually makes Nightscape Familiar not that good, even though it's a zombie, because it's mostly a black deck with some blue effects. Let's put this into sideboard, and maybe we play Stormscape Familiar instead. I mean, that makes this like really strong, even though it's not a zombie. It's like, it's reducing the cost on all of our black spells by 1. This is going to be better than a Mana Rock. Let's do this here. Hashtag ramp to MV. Okay, because we still have to get removal and counter spells in the deck, which I definitely want. We have a lot of draw and a lot of this. This is probably where it needs to go. Unearth might not be... maybe it's Return from Extinction, because it's a sorcery speed version of it. I think that's probably fine. We'll go sideboard with that. Draugr Recruiter is also really slow, but it's coming on a body, which I really value that. In that same way, type creature, return, creature, let's see, hand. So we just want to see what creatures. Oh, we want to do O creature as well, yeah. So we're saying we want to look for type creature, return to hand, and return a creature to hand. O graveyard, I guess we have to specify. So like Cadaver Imp is kind of cool. Oh, Courier Bat is, that's only if you gained life. This is really good though. I like this card. What else do we have? Yeah, Gravedigger was the one I was thinking of. This might be a better one. Grave Scrabbler is also interesting, but it's only if its madness cost is paid, so it's not going to work here. And then Pit Keeper is another really efficient one. Repository Scab, it's an Archaeomancer. It's going to be a 4/4 in the deck. It can get a spell back. This might be interesting to play, but it's kind of like random. It's like, why do you have that card? It's like not really synergizing with anything in particular. So Gravedigger is going to be Recursion and Reanimation. Is Gravedigger better than Draugr Recruiter? I mean, it does it like right away, and it can be any creature. This has to be like paid 4 mana into every time. Fell Horseman, is kind of it's interesting. Like Fell Horseman and Draugr Recruiter, you get an extra power, but Gravedigger is just like a lot better, huh? Draugr Recruiter allows us to do it over and over and over. Fell Horseman is gonna allow us to do it cheaply. Kind of feels like this is just better, and that maybe these two go. So let's take these ones. Haven't been able to make Draugr Recruiter work for me in zombie builds. I think because it's a 4/4 in this case, like I would almost say, like we have lots of ways to get things back. So maybe Fell Horseman is kind of similar to Gravedigger, whereas Draugr Recruiter is in a bit of a different class because this one can get them back over and over again. But it's a lot of mana. I mean, you pay 4, you get a creature back. Do you actually have mana to recast it then? I don't know that you do. I think we're going to put these ones into the sideboard for now. But that does put us kind of light on like these effects, and these are pretty important. But we got to add Dizzy Spell. The reason we're going to play Dizzy Spell is because we want to tutor for Tortured Existence. This is probably one of the only tutors we'll play. Because Tortured Existence is such a good card in the deck. We're going to play Muddle the Mixture, I think, too. Gravedigger is better than Draugr Recruiter. Yeah, I think so. It's just coming in as a 3/3. It's doing the thing right away. And the other thing is if Gravedigger dies, you can always bring it back and then get another creature back with it, which is pretty spicy. So I value that. You can see we're at 63 cards in the main deck, which is quite a lot. And we don't even have removal or counter spells in here. We have 49 creatures, which is too many. Too many. So we start cutting the bad ones. Like these ones that... I mean, these decayed things are like really, really gross with Shepherd of Rot in play, and with Gem Palm Polluter. Yeah, dude, we're definitely playing Tortex. This is a deck built around Tortex, because what we're gonna do is try and loop cards like Gem Palm Polluter and Shepherd of Rot if it dies, because Shepherd of Rot kind of has to die. Like this card is just busted. Basilica Screecher needs to be in here, and Cranial Plating, I think, because we also have to fit Ramp in here. We're gonna get pulled in a lot of directions here. Cranial Plating might not work if we aren't able to ramp a lot. Because like we have 65 cards in deck right now and no lands, which is going to be 34 probably. And then like I'd love to have 10 rocks in here, and I'd love to have like, I don't know, like 15 removal spells. So we're like kind of way off of that right now. Interesting. Okay, so that probably means that cards like Mockrit Behemoth and like Toxic Nim don't make the cut. Yeah, Toxic Nim might not make the cut, which is such a shame. It's such a cool card. Oh, Reanimation Recursion. And we've got the Basilica Screecher that we just added. This is going to be under 2 MV. and it's going to be under Drain. Always play Basilica Screecher in your black decks. I don't care what black deck you're playing. It's generically like one of the best black creatures in the entire format. Yeah, Trinket Mage probably isn't going to find a home here, as much as I thought it might. Malakir Blood Priest, these like drain effect creatures are just really good in general. I just don't know how we're going to make room for them without like coming at the cost of like good zombies. Shambling Ghoul is kind of interesting. It's a 2-mana 3/4, which is efficient. Putrid Goblin. I think these can go. I think they're just too generic. Tattered Mummy drains everybody when it dies. I think we could probably do better than that. Maybe not. Mire Triton is like mid. It's self-milling. It is gaining life. How many zombies do we currently have? 37. So we're doing good on zombies. That's good. Maybe Tormented Soul doesn't make the cut. Tormented Soul is going to go in sideboard for now, just because I really want to prioritize having zombies, and I don't know whether Cranial Plating is going to make the cut yet. We're going to have slightly less spot removal in the format because we are going to be playing, or in the deck, because we are going to be playing the Edicts, and those are going to have to come at the cost of that. Let's get some ramp in here. Dreamscape Artist is interesting. That's actually really good, isn't it? Like, play this on 2, turn 3, discard a card that we, like a creature that we can get back, and then ramp. And they come into play untapped. Huh. That's interesting. This is like a really... That's pretty powerful. I like that a lot. I know of the card, but I didn't think about using it in like a Dimir shell as like a ramp effect. It's pretty strong. Guardian Idol is good. Really good. And it's mostly a black deck. Guardian Idol is really good. These are man lands, okay? So like we don't have man lands in the format, but we have man rocks or creature rocks. Guardian Idol, Fountain of Ichor, and Flywheel Racer are all good examples of that. It's also a 2-mana rock, which is important. Zombie Wizard can do Foretell cards and casting instants and sorceries. That's not good. Mind Stone, traditionally pretty good. Ornithopter of Paradise is great if you are playing Cranial Plating, because it's an artifact, it's a flyer, it's an attacker, it makes mana of any color, but it does die to sweepers. Making the mana of any color isn't that important because we're actually mostly a black deck, so I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Star Compass is great. Thieves' Tools makes things unblockable. Thought Vessel we probably don't need. Prismatic Lens. Yeah, so we're going to want like some number of rocks. Yeah, we're pretty close to the number we want. Maybe we don't need like a massive amount. It might just be the cost of what we're doing. Like, are there any 3-mana rocks we want? Could be that we want... Altar of the Pantheon is interesting. Because with Gary, it does amplify the devotion by 1, which is like quite a lot. That's draining an additional 1 and gaining an additional 3. If we reuse it every time, that's quite good. It's the only thing that we care about, though. And you have to have a god, demigod, or legendary enchantment. Now, I did see it pointed out that the legendary enchantment part works really well if you have a background deck, because you get a legendary background enchantment, right? So this is good in those decks, but I think in this one here, we don't meet those conditions to gain the life every time with the tapping. And this is like a great card. If it were a little easier to use, then this would be played in a lot of decks because the life gain, it's like Pristine Talisman doesn't see play primarily because it's a 3-mana colorless producing rock. But in this, deck, it would help with Devotion. I don't think there's anything else we care about with Devotion, but we'll throw it in the sideboard. Maybe Gaining Life is just that good right now. I mean, Gaining Life is phenomenal right now, undoubtedly. Yeah, here's Fountain of Ichor. I really like that. It'd be super cool if it was a changeling, but it's not. Honored Heirloom is good. Infernal Idol is very good. Making only black is fine in this deck. Drawing 2 cards later on for 3 is phenomenal. Network Terminal is like as good as Bonder's Ornament. So this one's good. Orazka Relic is actually really good in this deck because the life gain is so important to us. Which means maybe we do play Pristine Talisman. We're mainly black. We're going to have a hard time fitting all these cards into the deck, though, because now you want to go up to Network Terminal because Network Terminal wants to be around other artifacts, and when it is, then it can loot freely every time. Maybe we have enough card advantage that it's fine and we don't need to, but we'll add that to the sideboard. There's also Bonder's Ornament, but I think we're going to have plenty to do with our mana, so I'm not convinced that we necessarily need to do that. Unstable Obelisk is always good. Yeah, that's some good stuff there. Yeah, so here, and I'll tell you a little bit about why I really value the life gain right now. The meta has gotten fast, and part of the ways that it's gotten fast is that you see a lot of pinging going on. That's through Extort, it's through things like Reckless Fireweaver, Ingenious Artillerist, Impact Tremors, Drain effects in black, like ETB, like Vampire Spawn type stuff. Like the aggressive black decks are all doing Mass Drain. The red decks are frequently playing pingers, like most of the time. And even some combo decks are starting to include pingers as their infinite mana payout for like a Ghostly Flicker combo, because they just Ghostly Flicker over and over and over again. They make infinite mana, but the mana doesn't matter. It's just the casting the spell over and over again that's good. And so in those cases, then they are pinging you up until the point that they combo. So if they don't kill you with the combo, they're still hurting you, and they can still kill you in a mid-range fashion. Also, you've got, the gut decks out there, whether they're Rakdos or Boros. Life totals just feel super low these days, and Pristine Talisman gaining you like 5 or 6 life over the course of the game is really good. Orazka Relic gaining you 3 and drawing you a card is good. Maybe that's why we wouldn't play Infernal Idol, because we have lots of draw. I think that's fine. Yeah, so we'll take out Infernal Idol. Yeah, this is good, 10 ramp. This could be something else if we plan on using Gary a lot. I wonder if we want Brain Spoil to tutor for Gary. I wonder if we want to play all of the Transmute. Oh, we definitely want Dimir Houseguard. That card is busted in Tortex decks. Dimir Houseguard is also like pretty staple black card. You won't play it in aggressive, like really aggressive black decks, but it has evasion. So it's basically unblockable unless it's like a TPI player, and that sucks. But it's basically unblockable. It can sacrifice things, which is really good because if your opponent tries to target you with like an Oubliette or an Aura, you can reset your commander. But it can also protect itself. So if you have lots of little creatures, you can protect this Dimir Houseguard, and it puts itself into the graveyard for cards like Reaping the Graves, so you can reuse it over and over again. The Transmute finds Pestilence, Chain Devil, Siphon Mind, Vicious Battle Rager, Thorn of the Black Rose, Aarakocra Sneak, Snuff Out. Every good, like most of the good black cards out there can be tutored with Dimir Houseguard, and it's a creature, so we can reuse it with the Tortex. So I like this one a lot. That's going to be a tutor. This is also going to be a 4 MV creature. Muddle the Mixture. Muddle the Mixture can find Shepherd of Rot. That's pretty spicy. It's just a matter of like how much do we want to play counter spells when we're like double blue is actually really brutal. Double blue is super brutal. Like we're not going to be able to do that. Our deck is like mostly black. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Oh, double blue for Dizzy Spell too. I don't think we can do that. I think it would have to be like Shred Memory at the 2-drop slot to find Cranial, to find Shepherd. Yeah, I don't think we can play these. Damn. I don't know, maybe we can, but looks kind of sussy to me. Let's bring in Ornithopter for Charcoal Diamond. Because we do have Cranial. Dreamscape Artist is our other ramp card. So Dreamscape comes in for what? Star Compass maybe? Or maybe Mind Stone. Maybe we don't. Like, how many draw? We have 14 draw. These are all pretty good draw spells. And we have a lot of recursion. So maybe Mind Stone is not premium here. I really think Dreamscape Artist is going to be quite good. Discard a card, sack a land. You can tap the land for mana too. Huh. So what does that look like? Do we like discard a creature and then we can get it back later on? And then it's like putting us up on mana. So we tap the land for mana. So say we go turn 2 Dreamscape. Yeah, how does this look? Turn 2 Dreamscape, turn 3, tap out, activate the ability, put 2 lands into play. What do we do with the 2 mana? We play a creature, we could play a rock. Most of our rocks are playable off of that. Most of our creatures are not. But it, you know. What do you all think of this card? Let me know. I'm going to start a little poll here. And you all can tell me if you think this card is worth playing. All right. Yep. Tell me what you think of Dreamscape in the deck, because we could just play like a 2, you know, we could just play like a 2 you know, 2 mana rock that just functions, right? Like Mind Stone, you know, and which draws a card. Dreamscape Artist is nice because it can ramp us multiple times. So if this thing sticks around, it's kind of like ramping us every turn. That's pretty strong. Yeah. Huh. I think we're going to try this out. The question is what comes out instead. And it could be Guardian Idol. We are a very creature-dense deck. So it might be actually that these are not necessary because we have so many creatures already. I mean, Guardian Idol's nice because when somebody sweeps the board and everything's dead and somebody has the Monarch of the Initiative, you can swoop in and take the Monarch in the Initiative from people and then hold it for the rest of the game because there's no creatures in play. But maybe that's not premium. I think we need to try Dreamscape. It does discard us a card, which is card disadvantage for the sake of ramp. That is worth keeping in mind. We might not want to discard cards. Like, if we discard a creature and then we have like these effects here, then we can get them back. And we're kind of like, I mean, the question is, do we have enough cards to support this thing sacking or like discarding cards every turn? I don't know if we do. I'm going to let you guys keep voting, but I think conditionally I'm just going to like pull this into sideboard for now because I just don't think it might just be too cute. And we're still way above on our number of creatures that we can actually play here. Mockrit Behemoth is such a cool card. It's a zombie. We have things to sacrifice. We can sacrifice our commander, but it's so expensive. Let's get rid of Toxic Nym first. Sideboard. Twisted Abomination stays because it's also a land. Mockrit Behemoth. What other bad cards do we have? Oh, we don't even have Moan of the Unhallowed in here. Holy shit. 4 mana, put 6 power into the battlefield. Definitely playing that. Yeah, this card. This one. It's one of my favorite cards that they printed for zombies. It's very sick. For a ghoul, every village is a buffet and every disaster a reunion. Grixis Slave Driver, probably not going to make the cut here either. Organ Hoarder, I think, does make the cut. What were the other cards that we talked about earlier? Organ Hoarder, Forbidden Alchemy, Rowan's Grim Search. We have a lot of tokens, so we definitely want that. Yeah, we have a lot of ways to do stuff with Rowan's Grim Search. And this is just also like a staple black draw spell. Even if you don't have lots of ways to bargain, you want to play this card. Because it's just 3 mana instant speed draw 2, and that's a playable effect. We play Succumb to Temptation, we play Blood what is it called? Blood Tithe? No, Blood Pact. Blood Pact. Yep. Okay, all the rest of this stuff is looking pretty good. I mean, if we were to go purely into zombies, we could also cut the initiative and cut the initiative completely. I don't think that that's correct, given just like how good it is in the deck, though. It's possible that these decayed creatures, even though they put a lot of power into play, are not that good because it's just like one use of them. That's perfectly possible. And then the Dothy Horror and the Dothy Slayer are also not zombies, but we have a lot of them. We have 35, so it's like, are these cards just generically good? I think so. Butcher Ghoul can go. We don't need that. Lazotep Reaver, great. Mire Triton's good. Larder, these are good. Cage Zombie, good. Yeah, help me out, chat. I think I need to drop the link to this in the chat here so you guys can take a peek, because I'm gonna need your guys' hand on making some important cuts here. I'm gonna end that poll. Didn't have a ton of participation in it, but that's fine. Yeah, Mockrat Behemoth, man. Dreamscape is a little fragile if you're waiting a turn to use and not a zombie. Yeah. Yeah. But the thing is, our rocks aren't zombies either, right? So that is one thing to keep in mind. So it's fine because it would be occupying a rock slot, and it is fragile. And the bigger problem though is that like I don't really want to be discarding cards to Harrow. I don't know. I mean, if you look at it as like turn a card in your hand into Harrow, then it's pretty good. I don't know. Maybe it's a card that should be explored more in Dimir. Ooh, a card that would be really good with Dreamscape Artist would be Ghost Ramirez, Ghost and Tormod decks. Ghost and Tormod decks, you could discard your card, ramp, and then get the card back. That's pretty spicy. You do that every single turn. It's expensive, but it's like pretty powerful, especially because the lands come into play untapped. Okay, so Mockrat Behemoth also looking kind of hard. These are decayed tokens as well, but like this is so much power. It's like this is 10 power for 5 mana. The decayed things though are basically kind of, they're kind of funky because like they only attack once, and then we like hope to sacrifice them. Is it better just to have a single Mockrat Behemoth? The fact that we can get it back over and over is kind of cool. We're definitely favored going wide versus going tall. I just don't think Mockrat Behemoth is going to make the cut, unfortunately. I mean, Mockrat Behemoth does work really well with the decayed tokens, now that I think about it, because we can just sacrifice them before combat. It seems like such a shame to leave it at home. It's such a good card. Lots of good card advantage here. Lots of good recursion. Graveyard Hate. We also have the 4 mana Graveyard Hate, which is Diregraph Scavenger. It's going to go under graveyards. 70 cards in deck and we don't have lands yet. We may have to take another stab at this another time. Let's keep going, but I'm sensing that it's going to take more work to complete this because there's a lot of interlocking layers here. We really want our prime game plan of Shepherd, Gempalm Polluter, Gary, Tortex, zombie stuff to be good. But I don't want to do it so much at the cost of other good stuff. You know, like not playing the initiative and I'm fine with not playing the Monarch. The initiative is a different story though. It's so good. And the fact is like we can get these initiative cards back and we can reuse them. So like if we top deck Larder Zombie and somebody just killed our Vicious Battle Rager, we just swap it, right? And we get to do it again. So it's like they're generically good because our recursion also can just hit creatures. 5 MVP is packed with so many good critters. It is, yeah. That's one of the problems you have in black is that like when you get to 4 and 5 and the curve goes up from there, there's a lot of good stuff. And like we need to cut a lot of cards because like we got Victim of Night, we got Grasp of Darkness, we got Defile, we've got Snuff Out. We could even do Spinning Darkness, but I think we want to reuse our creatures, so that's not as exciting. We got Doomblade, which actually I play quite a bit nowadays because most creatures we want to kill aren't black. Like there aren't black combo creatures really. Like there's Putrid Goblin. And black creatures outside of like Passageway Seer tend not to get that big unless they're a Cranial Plating deck, and then that can be a problem. But like Terror is also playable. The reason you would play Doomblade, Terror, these cards is because they're splashable. In our deck, it's not as important. So we can just play like good removal, that's double black. Like we'll play Oubliette. We're also going to play both Impetus cards. These cards are broken. If you aren't playing these in your deck, you really need to ask yourself why, because they're cracked. Oh, that's not what we wanted. We want to go to removal. And Popper, why are they broken? Good question, Timmy. The reason that the Impetus cards are broken is because that when you put them on your opponent's creatures, it makes that creature never attack you until the end of the game, at which point you've got answers for it. And while they do so, they generate value for you. So they apply pressure to your opponents, oftentimes commanders, right? You often put them on a commander, so sometimes it's commander damage. You buff them up and make them hard to kill with like bolts and galvanic blasts. They generate value for you, and if your opponent doesn't like that the other opponent has a creature that's going to attack them, they will kill it and you'll get a 2-for-1. So they're like a fog, like Spectral Grasp is the same card, basically. Yeah, so just play these cards. They're really good. You can tutor for them with like Heliod's Pilgrim and Shrine Keeper and Totem Guide Heartbeast and all that stuff too. They're really strong. The only thing I would say is that Psychic and Parasitic Impetus, you have to be careful that you don't put too many cards in your deck in terms of removal that don't also act at instant speed. You have to be very careful about that. So, Oubliette, Parasitic Impetus, Psychic Impetus, and then usually you'll play like Faceless Butcher. That's like, you don't want to go too much deeper than that in terms of like sorcery speed doesn't kill a combo creature. Because the other problem is that Psychic Impetus and Parasitic Impetus, they don't kill the creature. So if you really just need to kill a combo creature, these aren't going to cut it. Sometimes that will be a problem. But generally speaking, they're just really strong. And we got to get this foul art out of here. Don't ever use this core set art. You got to use the Scars of Mirrodin art. It's much cooler. It's like an angel getting dragged down by aggressive black swamp goo. Much cooler. Oubliette, of course, we're not using the Arabian Nights printing. That shit's expensive. We use the list. Snuff Out, cool. Defile, Doomblade. So yeah, we're still way up on... What are our other removal effects that we want? O tag, removal, O creature, type instant. ID equals, oh, you know what we want? We want Echoing Truth and Echoing Decay. So both of these cards are important right now because they both hit Abdel tokens, they both hit Gut tokens, they both hit TPI tokens, Third Path Iconoclast. And in fact, if there's a TPI and an Abdel, they're both soldiers, even though they're different colors and different colors. They're both soldiers, and so it hits everything with the same name. So you get all of them, which is great. And they both hit combo creatures as well. You can just bounce a combo creature. You can bounce an aura. You can bounce all sorts of stuff with this. And then Echoing Decay kills most combo creatures. -2/-2 is enough. So yeah, we like those. The other card that we want is Bargain. We want Candy Grapple. The Decayed tokens are actually starting to look really useful for Bargain, now that I think about it. For these two, like Candy Grapple is really good. We also like Final Flourish. Final Flourish is a great spell. NF says, relatively new to the channel, and from someone who recently fell in love with Pauper, Commander, your channel and content is amazing, intelligent, entertaining. Sorry to interrupt your flow, just thank you. God damn. Well, that feels really, really, really good to hear. Thank you, NF. I'm glad that you're enjoying the format, and I'm really glad that you're enjoying the content, that you find it like useful. I really find it really pleasurable to like share all this information that I've gained playing pretty much exclusively Pauper Commander over the last couple of years. And I'm really bullish about the format in general. I think that the ability to play Commander, which is the most popular form of Magic, at a competitive level at a very low price is really unique. The ability, like this deck here is going to be like 50 to, Snowlands will push it above. It'll probably be a $75, $80 deck. Which is expensive for Pauper Commander. I have a Conclave Mentor deck, which is essentially Hardened Scales, and it's at $10. It's like almost $11. Most of my decks run between 25 and 50, and I'm building them at full power. I'm not like building them for the budget, but they just are budget, and that's why I'm able, for MagicCon Las Vegas, I'm going to be going there with, I don't know, like 15 Pauper Commander decks, competitive Pauper Commander decks that are fully powered out, fully ready to go. And I think that's really exciting. And I think accessibility in Magic is really important. I don't want to play somebody's pocketbook. I want to play them. And I've been the person for a lot of years who wasn't able to afford like powerful Magic cards, especially like in Modern and in Standard and all this other stuff. And then, like I wasn't able to compete, but I like competition. I would have to play like RDW, Red Deck Wins in Modern, and just have people like feast on me with their sideboard, like Dragon Claws and Sanctifiers and all this other stuff. And so I really prefer that. I think it levels the playing field, and frankly, the gameplay is incredibly interactive, and I don't like pod racing. That's why I play mid-range. That's why I play control. When I play Magic, if somebody's like ignoring the table and just trying to do their thing, I don't really find that as fun. I want to be the person interacting and like engaging with people. I think that creates the most dynamic gameplay, and there aren't very many formats in terms of multiplayer formats. Pauper Commander is incredibly interactive, and I think that's a really strong suit. Your interaction is better than the threats, and that says it all. So NF says, I think you're onto something, really rooting for the format. Well, that's fantastic. I'm rooting for it too. That's why we're doing this for sure. Final Flourish is very good though. I just wanted to point that out. Final Flourish, it will kill most combo creatures as -2/-2. And if you need to kill a Dargo or a big creature that has like indestructible, like a Bastion Bastion Protector, this card will actually allow you to do it because it's --. So unless they have protection, they won't be able to stop it. And you can usually sack a rock, you can sack a Decayed token, you can sack a creature if you need to. We could sack Narfi, right? Like this card's very flexible. I really, really like this. It does anything we want it to, whenever we want it to. Candy Grapple, good too. Yeah, but thank you, NF. I really appreciate you sharing that. That's just music to my ears. I love getting that kind of positive feedback. We probably need to play Siphon Mind. Siphon Mind is just a really, really good draw spell, and we can tutor for it with Dimir Houseguard. So like sometimes you like top deck Dimir Houseguard and you have nothing else in hand, and you can transmute it, find Siphon Mind, cast it. Yeah, it's expensive, but you're putting 3 cards in your hand. And I think that's really good. You can also tutor for Faceless Butcher, Snuff Out in a pinch. I have done that. You have no other 4 mana removal, and you only have 3 mana. You go Dimir Houseguard, Snuff Out, Snuff Out. You can do it, right? It also tutors for Gravedigger. It's going to tutor for Chain Devil, Drain with the Diregraph Scavenger, Vicious Battle Rager, Siphon Mind, Aarakocra Sneak. I mean, it's just got a lot of hits. Vengeful Dead, Infectious Horror. I mean, there's a lot of really good hits, actually. in fact. This is a lot of draw, though. It's a lot of draw. It's possible that we actually don't play Sign and Blood Night's Whisper, which might seem weird. But if we weren't going to play those, then we actually would start with Siphon Mind. So maybe we... Because look at all these sack draw effects that we have that we can use with Narfi and with like little creatures, you know, and with creatures that want to be in the graveyard. Could probably go down a little bit on this because we're spending a lot of time deploying creatures. But the problem is that we have like kind of a chonky mid curve, you know, and we want to be able to play like more than one spell on a turn, ideally. Priest of the Haunted Edge is just looking like the worst removal spell in this whole thing. It's just so bad comparatively to everything else. It's so sad. It's just like the fact that it's a sorcery speed is so dumb. It's like this would be really, really good if it was just like an onboard stacks effect, but it's not. And like the reality is like this is what it's up against. This is, you know, Aether Spellbomb, Executioner's Capsule, like genuinely some of the best removal spells in the game are these like onboard ones. And like that's what this is occupying the slot of. So sorry, Priest, but you're just dog shit and you gotta go. It's not your fault either. WotC just like crippled you in the womb. So we're not going to be a counterspell deck, I guess. We're just going to be removal, which is fine. Yeah, we could actually, you know, something I'll commonly do is I'll play Arcane Denial. So I do this in Rilsa Rail, which is also mostly it's a bit more of a Dimir deck. This is mostly a black deck splashing blue, but I will play 2 counterspells. And that is Arcane Denial and Dispersal Shield. Dispersal Shield is a splashable counterspell that counters almost everything. It counters a spell up to the highest converted mana cost of creatures you control. So it works on rocks, or sorry, not creatures, but permanents. It works on rocks, it works on enchantments, it works on our commander, which is 5 mana. It works on our chonky mid-level threats, and it's splashable, so it's very flexible. Arcane Denial draws us cards. So I think this is actually a card we will play, as strange as that might seem, just having like 2 counter spells. But I think just having 2 of these is like perfectly fine. And then a Dispersal Shield under counter spells as well. We'll probably have to cut the removal down by 1 to make that happen. We could cut something like Doomblade. I really like these onboard effects of Capsule and Spellbomb because people can't combo when you've got them in play. And maybe Doomblade is the worst of them. Although 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 instant speed removal spells, 2 counter spells. So we could go to 12 in total if we cut one of these. Because, like, look, we have to do lands right now. We have to do Troll of Khazad-dûm, which will just be a land. Lorien Revealed, which will actually, that's another draw spell. So maybe with Lorien Revealed, we actually cut Siphon Mind. But the way I do these, and this is something that not everybody is picking up on yet, but like I was really early in on these 1-mana cyclers. You can go back and look at me on Twitter. It's probably one of the first ones. Made some like charts showing exactly what they could do, but you just cut a basic land for each one of these. They're just Ash Barrens that when you top deck them in the late game, they're like a win condition, you know? Like they're really, really good. Really, really good. And with Dread Return in a deck that ramps, you can go turn 1 cycle Troll, turn 2 Arcane Signet, turn through Dread Return, and you can just throw out a Troll of Khazad-dûm to start like attacking people really early. So it unlocks some kind of like explosive starts from mid-range decks. Man, I really want to go back to the Mockrat Behemoth because we have all these decayed creatures. Okay. We got to do it. We got to do it. It's too good. It's too big. The question would be, with Mockrat Behemoth, would we be more happy with a Malifed Twins? And we haven't even gone into like Stitch Drake, although Stitch Drake is double blue, so I think almost certainly that won't make the cut. Yeah. Okay, how many lands do we need now? I mean, it's like 32, so let's just do 32 Swamp, Snow Swamp. And then we'll go and balance this later on. But we just need to see how far out of we're so out of whack. We're 22 cards off what we need, where we need to be. Just so much. There's so much given like the quality of what we're working with here. Like it's gonna come at the cost of card draw. It's gonna be like Night's Whisper, Sign in Blood, Siphon Mind. Because one of the things is like, if you think about it, like the draw and the recursion are really similar. You know, if something is like good enough to die, it's good enough to bring back. So like one card getting 2 cards back from the graveyard is card positive, but it's like conditional on having cards in the graveyard. And so, whereas like Night's Whisper is 2 mana, draw 2, it's kind of the same thing, right? And maybe we mix it up a little bit. Maybe we can't play Dispersal Shield. Maybe we only play Arcane Denial, which is fine because it draws us cards. That could be the case. I think that's what's going to happen here. We'll put it in sideboard. We may come back and cut removal so that we can have 2 of them, but I think having a single counterspell is fine. Like realistically, I don't know how much our zombies are going to die. That's one of the other big questions I have here. Rank Officer, pretty cool. Spark Reaper, I don't think... Well, Spark Reaper is really good with Decayed, isn't it? Because we can attack with the Decayed. At the end of combat, we sacrifice it to draw a card, so we like recover that really quickly. Works with the Cage Zombie too. Tattered Mummy is looking a little bit like limp. And Vidalcan Ghoul is kind of interesting too. It's kind of like a Dothy Slayer, right? Mire Triton is kind of weird as well. The Self Mill is not that relevant. The Gaining 2 is nice. The Death Touch is nice. The fact that we can bring it back with Death Touch is nice. How many Death Touch creatures do we have? Mire Triton. We have the Hobbling Zombie. We have the Diregraph Scavenger. It's not enough for us to go into Longbow. But Mire Triton is just kind of weird. It's like it's a 3/2. It's got Death Touch. So it's kind of a removal spell too. It's Mill 2. I don't really know. This is weird. It's like nowhere near the power of like Lazotep Reaver or like White or even Vidalcan Ghoul being unblockable. Highborn Ghoul being unblockable. Ghastly Gloom Hunter being lifelinking and hard to block. Tattered Mummy has to die to get the drain. I think we are going to cut that. Mire Triton might have to go as well. How many zombies? We're going to probably be like... We are actually starting to get kind of low on... Well, not low on zombies. Is Larder Zombie any good? It's a 2/4 for 1 mana, which is actually a pretty good blocker. And it allows us to tap creatures to... You have to tap 3, though. And we're probably attacking. I think we're going to cut this. It's a big body, but it's a defender. We might have to cut... Yeah, it's got to come out of draw. With Lorien revealed, I think we can cut Siphon Mind. The sacrifice effects are just like really good, I think, in this deck, especially with our commander. So I'm going to do the heretical thing that I've done in a couple of decks, and we're going to cut the good black draw for better black draw, which is like from our graveyard, cycling, like the flex. We're going to favor flexibility. So like Unearth, Wander, and Death. Although Unearth could come out. Unearth is, you know, it's getting back how many creatures? 10, 21, 22. It's getting back things like Fleshbag Marauder, Gangrenous Zombies, Ghoul Raiser, Servant. It gets back Basilica Screecher. Gets back Crypt Rats. Getting back Crypt Rats is disgusting. Disgusting. Are there any other changelings? I know we're not supposed to be... Oh, wait. We're not supposed to be, like, looking at more cards to add right now, but we always do a little bit of this. Oh, interesting. When it enters, if you control 3 or more creatures that share a creature type, put a +1/+1 counter and then scry. So this comes in probably with 3 other creatures. And if it does, it becomes a 4/6 that scries 1. That's not really good enough, even though that's good. Oh, we don't have Nameless Inversion. We need to play this card. Yeah. Moth Dust Changeling, tap an untapped creature you control, it gains flying. So it's like a 1-mana flying zombie that can do stuff. There's a 1/3 Death Touch. There's a 2/2 Regenerate, basically. Yeah, a lot of these cards are like pretty mid. Changeling is probably the closest. Nameless Inversion is really good because we can get that back with a variety of different effects. That one will come in for a different removal spell. That one, oh, we're bugging out. Got to reload. There we go. Okay, so what are we removing instead? We'll just take Doomblade out. It's really good, but we don't need it. And I think we can cut another removal spell. We don't really have a lot of ways to reuse Faceless Butcher. That is one thing. And Faceless Butcher kind of occupies the same spot as Oubliette and Parasitic Impetus and Psychic Impetus because it tags commanders. It tags them over and over again if you can reuse it, but we don't have Grave Flickers. We don't have a lot of sack outlets, like free ways to do it, and we don't have any reanimation. And although Dread Return is actually really gross in this deck with the Decayed tokens. The other thing is Faceless Butcher. If you can flicker it or if you can ninjutsu it, it's much better, but we're not doing like any of that. I think we're going to cut this one. I love Faceless Butcher, but it's also a hit off Dimir Houseguard. I hate cutting it. I hate cutting it. We have 12 artifacts in the deck, which is starting to make Cranial Plating look like unplayable, which in that case we would cut Shred Memory. Let's just do that for now so we can make some progress. I think this is an amazing Cranial Plating deck because of the unblockability, but we just don't have that many artifacts. Like Artifact and Zombie doesn't like cross over very much. You know, instead of Unearth, we could just play Dread Return, and then that could get back any creature. I think this is like pretty criminal to not play Dread Return. Dead Return. Dread Return. There we go. Yeah, this is just like too good. And if we need to cut something else for it, we will. Yeah, especially with our tokens. So the Amass tokens being some of them as well. Let's see what other Amass cards we have that make zombies. This makes orcs. Zombie, zombie. Oh, isn't there another... Okay, there's a couple other cards we need to look at too. Like, not this one. Exiles a card from a graveyard if you do create a 2/2 black zombie. Cradle the Accursed. We want this. This is a great utility land. It can be sacked to make a 3/3 in our case. It comes into play untapped. Deathnell Berserker was the one I was looking at. Unfortunately, this is not a zombie, so we don't really have a way to increase its power. And because if we did, then it would make a 2/2 when it died, which would be cool. Doom Dissenter is, you know, making a 3/3 on the back end. We can sacrifice it. It's like iffy. This is kind of interesting. 3 mana counter target spell unless its controller pays 4, and they make a Decayed token. But it's a Decayed token. If it were not Decayed, we might want it. But oh, Rotten Reunion. And we also have like Shambleback. We have Vile Rebirth. Man, we have Wake Dancer. Ooh. There's a lot of good cards. Rotten Reunion in particular is a really powerful form of graveyard hate. And in this case, it's like 3 mana makes 6 power worth of bodies and exile 2 cards. Shambleback can be used to target our stuff. Gains life, makes a 3/3 for 1. Damn. Yeah, that's really good. We actually have a pretty good glut of like powerful cards for this deck. I actually kind of like Flip the Switch. Definitely Cradle. Doom Dissenter is interesting, like playing it early, sacking it to something to draw a card, make the 3/3. And then we're going to go, Rotten Reunion is graveyards. That's its main purpose. We're also going to have Bajuka Bog. So that being the case, yeah, it kind of makes sense to cut Cranial and Shred Memory, because Shred Memory would be like our 4th graveyard hate spell, and we just don't need that much. It's just like really excessive. 10 of these. You know, Stormscape Familiar is going to be kind of hard to cast. How many blue spells do we have? 13%. We're like, oof. Is our commander a blue, black, blue, black? No, it does cost blue. So like anything cheap that is blue is going to be inconsistent. That means both of these. These ones here, we have to make the accommodation for because they're really good, especially Aven Eternal. Yeah, Stormscape is really strong. It discounts our entire deck. It like literally like our entire deck, while also being like an invasive creature. I mean, it turns like Ghoul Razor into 1 mana, 2 mana Fleshbag Marauder, 2 mana Crypt Rats, 2 mana Cage Zombie, like, you know, 3 mana Vicious Battle Rager, 3 mana Herald, 3 mana. It's just like really gross, actually. Super gross. This is actually going to go under lands, Twisted Abomination is, because that's really what it is. And where's our Cradle of the Accursed? Yeah, lands. So let's cut some of these here. Like that. It's a little skimpy because this is not reliably a land if you have a 1 land hand, but you shouldn't keep a 1 land hand anyways. Even a 2 land hand is kind of sketchy, whereas these here, if you have 2 lands and 1 of these, then you've got a 3 land hand, right? And you can reanimate this one later on. You can, we can get this one back with Mystic Sanctuary, but we're not going to play Mystic because we're mostly going to be swamps. So Witch's Cottage. And then we're going to play Mortuary Mire. We've got so many ways to get creatures back from the graveyard. It's like kind of insane because it's also on our lands. You know, we could play Haunted Fengraf as well, which there's no reason not to. Like it's just mostly a black deck. So Twisted Abomination I usually don't count as a land though. Any 2 mana cycler I don't count as a land. So they occupy a slot in the deck is what I'm saying. And these are going to go over Recursion and Reanimation as well. We might be overloaded on that. I mean, we have 11. It's like so many. But these are slow, right? These are not forms of card advantage. These are actually they're weird because they put it back on top and you get the card back on your next turn. Whereas Haunted Fengraf is random. That one might not be good enough, but we'll see. Raise the Draugr, very good. I think Unearth is going to be end up being strong, although Unearth could be cut for something else. I like the removal suite. I think that's good. The sweepers are feeling strong. Gangrenous Zombies looking good. Dimir Houseguard's going to be great. How much life gain do we have? That's a big question. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just 6. That scares me because Shepherd of Rot will kill us. Unless we kill the whole table at the same time, which is a fun trick you can use with Shepherd of Rot. You can kill everybody at the same time. If you are going to lose and you're in a tournament and a draw is better than a win, you can kill everybody and yourself. So that just you should know that. Like it might behoove us to actually play some number of like drain creatures, or maybe we just need to play like a 2nd and 3rd copy of Gary by playing Blood Tithe and like bigger life gain. Like, yeah, Blood Tithe and Siphon Soul would be 2 that we could play. But again, we're so strapped on cards right now. Kind of running out of gas here, chat. Not really sure what we're supposed to do. Because these cards are just like really good. All these are really good in the deck. The Decayed stuff is actually like pretty decent with what we're doing. The Edicts are all good. I mean, maybe we could cut Chain Devil, but Chain Devil's like the best one. Feels weird to cut the zombies because the zombies are zombies, right? So like it works with what we're doing. Whereas Chain Devil is the better Edict out of these. So I kind of just want to play all three, especially because Edicts, when you're playing like Recursion, are so oppressive, right? They're so strong. When you can like reuse them over and over and over and over again, they become like a huge source of like card disadvantage for your opponent. This ramp feels like appropriate. It feels correct that we play this amount of ramp. Because our deck is kind of like some expensive stuff. This might be too much. Maybe Unearth is too much because these are all card advantage. This is just getting back one. So it's kind of like this is bringing a body. I think Unearth is going to have to go. 44 creatures, painful cuts indeed. Yeah, and this is something you run into. Like, kind of one of the big differences between a mid-range deck and a control deck is the number of creatures. The number of creatures in a mid-range deck is going to be more than that of a control deck because a control deck needs to have, you know, like 15 kill spells, 3 edicts, you know, or counter spells, maybe 10 counter spells, 10 removal spells, like a bunch of sweepers. So you end up with like a quarter of your deck being removal. Your control, so you want lots of mana, so a minimum of 10 rocks, you know, and then you just find it hard to include all the stuff. And that's where like Tortex, being kind of a controlling card, finds tension with this because we want to put in lots of creatures to make it very good, and we want to have a spread of creatures so that we can take bad creatures in the late game and turn them into good creatures that are in our graveyard. But like, how do we fit in cheap creatures when we also want to ramp? There's tension. There's tension with 100 cards in like what we're trying to do here. But I think Unearth can go. You know, Gangrenous Zombies is the worst of the sweepers here. It's just so cool because it's like, it's a little weird because if we play this card out, we can just attack with it and we can do things and it's a 3/3. And then when we want the sweeper, we can use it. But if we're attacking with it and our opponent doesn't want us to have a sweeper, then they'll just kill it before they want to do their thing, and it'll be tapped because it's attacking. So this card is like, it's really bad. It's really bad. Like I don't know, maybe like Arms of Hadar would be better, or like or Drown in Sorrow, you know? Drown in Sorrow would be better. Arms of Hadar only hits one player. Gangrenous Zombies, I don't know. It's like if you're playing against a TPI player and you play this out, they're going to look very hard to kill this card. The one of the two, Dothy and Highborn, seem easy cut. Yeah. See, this is the tough thing though, right? Like, we're cutting really good black cards to like make sure our zombie thing happens. You feel me? Right? That starts to, so like you're right? These are probably the cuts. But if that's the cut and it's coming at the expense of playing good cards, is it a good deck, right? If we're cutting, because what we're leaning into is a synergy, right? Let's first do a couple things, okay? Let's cut the Vidalcan Ghoul. Blue-black is going to be hard to do, right? Let's see. God, Path of Ancestry is going to be broken here. Opal Palace is going to be interesting. I like Opal Palace and I like Study Hall. You're not going to cast it from the command zone very much, so it's only going to ever be Scry 1 and 1 counter. So that's kind of weird. And they're not Snowlands. Maybe those aren't good. I mean, if he comes back as a 5/4 though, that's like really good. That's a big creature, so I'm fine with that. Opal Palace is good. Path of Ancestry is good. Command Tower. I just gotta see how much blue we have. We want Ice Tunnel, and we want Contaminated Aquifer, and we're gonna want Dimir. Aqueduct, yep. And then Bajuka Bog. Okay, we're getting closer. We're getting closer, chat. I think that Haunted Fengraf won't make the cut. The fact that it's random is going to be kind of weird. So let's just bring it into the sideboard. Mire Triton, chance to oop mill Tortured Existence makes me not like it. Yeah, no, I'm fully in agreement on that. I think it needs to go. It's weird because it's just like a pretty damn good like zombie card, but like I would be so tilted if it like flipped over something that like was genuinely really good that I wanted. Oh, come on, Moxfield, you got this. We have to reload it to get it back on track here. Oh boy, Moxfield's a little slow today. It's not my computer. Looks like we're all copacetic there. Interesting. All right. I do want to take a moment to thank everybody who stuck around through the live stream. I hope you're enjoying yourselves. Thank you, Do, for being here, and for everyone else. And yeah, we're going to keep working on this here. We're going to be wrapping up here pretty soon. I've got company coming over here shortly, and I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time. But let's look at the lands. Come on, there we go. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Ah. Oh. You're choking, Moxfield. All right. Well, we're just going to do it manually then. Oh, really? Okay. All right. There we go. All right. All right. All right. Cool. So now we need to cut a couple of lands here down to 34. Whoa, we got a big error here. Oh, what the hell is happening? Okay, 34. Lately, I've been a little bit lower on land counts. So yeah, so we have one way to make blue, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then there's going to be 7 here because this is Find an Island. This is probably going to be like 5 island, snow-covered island. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put that under lands. Rancid Rats, any good as a Death Toucher for regaining the initiative instead of Mire Triton? Well, Rancid Rats is one of those ones that's hard to block. I guess the question is, like, if we're cutting these evasive creatures, like Vidalcan Ghoul is starting to look like not feasible. Which sucks. Yeah, I mean, we're getting like O evasion, CMC equal. Well, no, it's O tag evasion, type creature, MV equals 2. So we need to know if we're missing out on any. Any like zombies that are unblockable. Oh, there's also like Dimir Infiltrator, which is another tutor, you know. But tutoring at 2, I guess, just become... Well, I mean, tutoring transmuting in this deck is really good with Tortured Existence. But the unblockability, we don't have a lot of payoffs for it with like Cranial Plating because we cut that. So this is kind of like find Shepherd of Rot or just have a 1/3. I mean, it's a good card, but it's like blue-black on 2. Like pretty hard to justify. Zombie Bat, that's good. Slug Horror, this is also an amazing card, but it's like, yeah, I don't know, not really working. I wish we had more of these like Highborn Ghoul type stuff. Because we miss out on some of the black evasive and blue evasive creatures because we're going for zombies. Yes, Rancid Rats could be good. It is unblockable until the commander comes down, and then when the commander comes down, then it's a death touching It is a death-touching creature that can just hang back and block. Let's bring it into the main deck and see. Rat, Horror, Spirit, Bird, Illusion, Fairy, Horror again. Surak. The hell is a Surak? It's crazy. Modern Age is really good too. Oh, we've got a Merfolk Zombie. Protection from green. It's like the most useless protection you could possibly have. But yeah, Vault Scourge is just like a really, really good card too. Like the fact that we don't have this makes me really sad because this is like really strong. There's another zombie, pro green. It's like terrible. Yeah, we're gonna have to make some like compromises on like some of the generically good black stuff to like have zombies, because the zombie and like the payoff we get is that some of these zombies are really efficient. Like Herald of the Dread Horde is putting 7 power into play for 4 mana. Infectious Horror can actually attack multiple times and not just get blocked and killed. Moan of the Unhallowed is 4 mana for 2 6/6s. So maybe that's partially why the 2-drops aren't where we want to be, because instead of doing this, we want to be ramping and then playing like better cards, right? So yeah, let's do that. Let's bring out the Dothy Slayer in that one. Stormscape Familiar seems good enough that it's like hard to justify cutting it, even though it's unlikely that we'll be able to play it on 2. If we play any rock before we play it, then we can play it, because all of our rocks are going to help us make blue. Except for Pristine Talisman, which actually, maybe our rocks need to make blue. Yeah, so that would mean like Mindstone, Guardian Idol, Pristine Talisman. I think we keep a Razka Relic, but Pristine Talisman could potentially go. Star Compass doesn't actually make blue. So actually we need Sky Diamond. Yeah, we need Sky Diamond for sure. All right, so we got that in there. We could probably cut like Mindstone and Guardian Idol, and then OTAG. We need to find stuff that makes blue. So Dimir does, Charcoal doesn't. Although making blue in a deck that wants black is kind of weird, I have to admit. It's just that we want both. We really want both. Maybe Prismatic Lens is important. Yeah, because we can filter and it's 2 mana, it's untapped. It's a pretty good rock as it is. Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, that is where like the what was it, that Harrow card was interesting, but it asks for blue mana on turn 2 as well. So Vesper Ghoul is interesting, but probably bad. Okay, I'll take a look at that. I think we looked at that one before, didn't we? Pay 1 life, filter. Huh. Yeah, that's pretty bad. You're not wrong about that. It's an option, though. I don't think we're that strapped for it, and it's that important that we would play this. Because, again, this also loses us life, and it has to tap to do it. Yeah, I don't think we can play that one. But that's definitely a thought. Appreciate you looking that one up, Ezra. One moment here. Okay. Moan. Mockrat. I can't help but think that this won't make the cut. It's unfortunate. But it's like we have 11 more cards to cut. So we have kind of a couple of like cheap flying, creatures, Aven. These, it won't be the heaviest distribution. Like I like to have a little bit more in my decks in general, but and then like these don't help us cast this because they're 3 mana. Sky Diamond, Prismatic Lens will work. Yeah, Prismatic Lens will work. Felwar Stone will make blue. So blue, 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 Probably not blue because we won't have a basic. We might, but probably not. This is probably just black mana. And then this doesn't make blue, this doesn't make blue, and neither does that. So network terminal would do it, but I'm a little concerned about cutting things that gain life, because I think that the Shepherd of Rot is like one of the best cards in the deck. And if we, I mean, there could be an argument with Shepherd that it's like if we've got Shepherd and we're doing Shepherd thing, we're gonna kill the table, but maybe the table kills us because we're doing that. Springleaf Drum. I just think this is too good. Like this card is discounting 75% of all the symbols, 75% of all the cards. It's like all of them. Makes a lot of things better. Okay, so what I think we're going to do, I'm going to need to talk with the patrons a little bit about this. I'm going to make it available to them in the supporter section so that they can help me get this across the finish line. Sorry, I've got somebody texting me on something time sensitive here, yes? Yeah, so this is going to need a little bit more grokking because there's some complicated like layering of priorities here. And you can feel that there's tension, right? We have a lot of good cards to play, but to maximize all of the good things, we end up losing out on a lot of good things too. And those good things, it's not clear to me which of those are priority, like which ones are the most important. And I tend to be concerned when I see needing to cut generically good things to make synergy things good, because synergy, unless it's like really like turned on really well, is kind of funky. You know, maybe that's part of the problem with the decayed cards. You know, like maybe all the decayed cards are really bad because our commander is 5 mana. So like they only work with our commander really. I mean, it's not true. I mean, they still come down and they're evasive, and then we can use these to sacrifice things to draw cards or to do things. But there's just some tension. There is tension in our dojo. And with that, I think I am gonna call it for now. It's totally okay to not finish these. In the past, I used to, I don't know, be like kind of hard on myself if I didn't finish it. And I'd like force myself to do like 3-4 hours to finish the damn thing. Nowadays, I think I'd rather just like save your guys' time, save mine, move on to the next thing. And what I'll be doing is I'll be tuning and adjusting this in the background with the patrons. And anybody else, if you all have ideas too, you're welcome to message me, message me in general. The list is public. And we can continue working on it. If any of you have a very special interest on it, you can keep chatting with me and we'll work on it together to get this there. We will get it to work. This commander is very promising. I think there's a lot about this that I really like. The fact that it skips the commander tax, it incentivizes like the Shepherd of Rot, Gem Palm Polluter, Gary stuff. There's a lot of great recursion, great card advantage. You've got amazing interaction. It has all the hallmarks of a good mid-range deck, and it's just about we got to just tease out the best parts of it to really make it sing. So this is not giving up on this. This is just putting a little pin in it, and we'll be working on it over the next couple of days. So yeah, I think that's where we're at right now. I want to take a quick chance here, take a quick moment while we're at it. And as we begin to wrap things up, I do want to thank all of the patrons who contribute financially to support this content. It really means the world to me when folks do that, because it shows that that they care about seeing more great cPDH content like this. They care about seeing the format expanded, seeing it grow. And I'm able to take that money and fund things like the trip to MagicCon, where I'm going to be there with some of the top PDH and cPDH personalities, internet personalities, content creators, influencers, spreading the good word about this incredible competitive format. It also, that money goes to supporting me purchasing a new computer. I don't like to admit it, but I'm like catastrophically close to like not being able to stream because my computer is like on the verge of dying and I need to buy a new one. So all these donations, all the contributions through the Patreon, they really do help promote the continuance of this content. It's not something that I expect to get rich off of, but your support is helpful. So actually, in fact, it looks like we got a new patron here, which is really exciting. Fabulous. So if you want to join the Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/common connoisseurs. The link is in the description of the video below. And with that, I want to thank all the people who contribute to the channel. So starting from the top, we've got Neil, who is our brand new patron subscriber. Neil, if you're watching this video, make sure to reach out to me on Discord and we'll do a little celebration of you. I make a little animation with your face on it or your icon, and then we'll post that out on Discord and on Twitter just to show people that that we really appreciate your support. So we've got Neil, Alex, Jared, Dax, the PDH Pod, Eric, Adgan, Zach, Scooby, Chris, Mizu, William, Paul, Corey, Derek, Ian, and Noyark. Thank you all so much for your contributions to the channel. It really, it makes me feel supported in continuing to make this stuff. If you too want to join, let me show you exactly how you can do it. You can go to the patreon.com/common connoisseurs, and we have a bunch of tiers to make sure that you can afford to do this at a level that works for you. So let me go here, go to the Common Connoisseurs there. Yep, we've got a $2, $5, $10 level. We also have a $20 and a $50 level for those of you super enthusiastic about it. But these are great value. All of these gain access to a ton of different value. You get access to the exclusive supporters only section of the Discord. You get to vote on the Let's Build. And I want to mention that a Narfi and Amber Agent of Shadow Thieves, the last two Let's Builds, were both voted on by the members. So if you want to be a part of that, if you want to recommend different things to me that we can build, if you want to see commanders that you want to see play, built on the stream, that's a great way to do it. Being in part of that supporters only section of the Discord. It's also where you're going to see all of my exclusive updates to all the decks that I build on this stream and that I personally play. It's one of the things that I value a lot is keeping my decks up to date, and I'm constantly making updates with some of the most amazing deck builders out there. So we've got updates with Rilsa Rail. I just made a bunch of updates today. I made a bunch of updates to TPI recently, a bunch of updates to Goreclaw. So some of the really cool decks that you've seen built here on the stream with you, me, chat, with whoever I bring in for my co-host, that's a really good way to do it. You'll see all the stuff there. It's also a great way to discuss the Let's Build videos before they happen. So I actually, this weekend, I posted seven commanders that I'm going to be doing Let's Builds on. The members are all going to get to decide. They're going to get to vote on those things. And you'll get to talk about it before the video ever happens. So you'll see me and my co-host discussing how we're going to build it. You can contribute, you can recommend ideas. It's just a really fun way to increase your engagement with me and the other people here in the thing. And of course, we do shout out your name every time we have these videos. NF says, I signed up yesterday. Happy to join up and support you, Ryan. NF, you're an absolute champ. Thank you so much for your support. And I really do appreciate that. I think you must have been the person that I saw in the let's see, we got to make sure we don't, have to be very careful about not doxing people by being on the right page when I look at this. So let's see. I think you were the person who just signed up, right? Yeah, Neil. Awesome. Thank you so much, Neil. I really, really appreciate that. And big claps for you for joining up. So make sure to message me on Discord, personal message to me, and send me an icon or a headshot of you. If it is a headshot, make sure your head isn't cut off at the top, and then I'll make a little animation just celebrating the fact that you're a member. So thank you so much. And with that, Connoisseur is a fine common cardboard. We're gonna wrap it up for here. I had a great time with this tonight. Building Zombie Tribal is really, really fun. Typal. I know that's the terminology we're using nowadays. So the zombie typal stuff is really exciting. Being able to use like Shepherd of Rot, Gary, these recursion spells, like highly interactive mid-range deck. I think it's really promising. And if you end up building something that you think works really well, make sure to send it to me and we can kind of join forces and put that all together. So, but with that, Connoisseurs of Fine Common Cardboard, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, wherever you are in the world, and we'll catch you on the battlefield.